Hey everyone. Welcome back for the third and final part of What If Naruto Got the Rinnegan from Nagato. As always, huge thanks to all of my Patreons. Making these videos would be impossible without you guys' support, especially with all the restrictions YouTube places on my type of content. After this video, feel free to head over there, where you can find about 30 other different stories to enjoy. I will be posting a couple more stories over there a bit later, if they aren't already out by the time this video is out. Also, feel free to send me any messages over there if you have any questions or even if you just want to chat. Link to all of that will be in the description. Anyways, everyone, enjoy the video. Chapter 23, Escape. It had been about an hour since Naruto, Konan, and B broke through the barrier of the island. They had been traveling as fast as they could to reach the battlefield and try to lend a hand to everyone that was involved in the war. It was still a while away before they encountered anyone, and Naruto felt too pressured to slow down even a little. He had to make it in time. Any extra time that was wasted could mean more lives lost. While they were all dashing through the trees, Konan silently thought about everything that had transpired on that island. She thought about how much Naruto trained while stationed there. She also recollected the moment of rejection towards Naruto and could only sigh about it inwardly. There were a lot of things that she needed to tell Naruto, but right now, she would have to bite her tongue and wait until there was a better time, maybe after the war is over? Naruto idly thought inside of his mind about everything that he needed to do. It was a little overwhelming to think about so much in such a short time, but he was managing. The jump through the trees at least made him slow down mentally enough to process some of it. Light flickered from his body as he jumped from limb to limb. The Kyuubi chakra illuminated the path ahead of them, so they could see their path. It also helped boost the speed that he was going, so much so that it even caused the others to trail behind him further than usual. Using my powers for something so trivial, eh? It was then that his thought processes stopped and he appeared in his mindscape sewer. He saw the monstrous Kyuubi stare at him with his protruding fangs that seeped drool on each point. His eyes glowed a dark red that pierced even the darkest parts of the chamber. I've been inside of you for a long time and yet you still are so naive. Naruto looked up to the beast and smirked. Hey, you're actually talking to me without trying to take my life. Are you bored or something, because I can't talk right now? The fox snarled in annoyance. Do you honestly believe that you can win this war all by yourself? It would never work. Not unless you have more of my power. Naruto only snorted as he turned away from the Kyuubi. Ha! I'm not falling for that old trick. Hey, you've gotten smarter at least. Honestly, Naruto said as he began to walk away, I'm kinda busy, so I'll talk to you after the war is over. Feeling irritation rise from Naruto's dismissal, the Kyuubi yelled, if your comrades are killed, hatred will arise from their deaths. Do you honestly believe that you can save them all and defeat the enemies before this happens? Do you think you can bear all of that hate on your own? Naruto stopped walking as the fox continued, if you truly think this way, then you'll end up just like Nagato. This war will see to it that you do. Naruto stopped for a moment. The fox watched as the boy turned around and gave him a stare that surprisingly spooked him a little. Then, with a hoarse response, Naruto answered, don't act like I'm that stupid. The fox reeled a little before shouting, you don't understand a thing. Do you really think that you can get rid of this hatred? The war already started, and not only that, but there are already so many lives lost just from it transpiring for so long. Just think about it. The Kyuubi said with a confident smirk, did you ever accomplish your goal of saving Sasuke, or did it only become worse? You should know better than anyone else that Sasuke is a lost cause. You can't save him. I know you know this. Remember that time you fought each other? Naruto lowered his eyes solemnly as he remembered the small spar that Sasuke and he had together when they were kids. He couldn't forget that look on Sasuke's face. The look of a killer. The look of someone looking beyond what was in front of them. Remember now? The Nine-Tails growled, did anything change during all of this time you've been trying to save him? Were you able to erase his hatred? I don't think so. In fact, I think it's only grown since then. This is the type of hatred that can't be erased. It's better if you just know that now than worrying about Sasuke's redemption. Naruto stood there quietly as he took in everything that the Kyuubi was telling him. He knew Sasuke better than anyone else, but he also knew that Sasuke bore a deep hatred for the Leaf Village and everything that it stood for. Sasuke even said that he wanted nothing to do with Naruto, except to kill him. His thoughts were lost in his head, but he could only sigh as he looked at the ground. You know. You're right. The Kyuubi looked slightly astonished at Naruto's sudden change in character.
I believe that Sasuke is too far gone to be saved, Naruto said, as he walked closer to the cage.
But that doesn't mean that I can't at least try one last time. He walked inside the cage as the fox eyed him curiously. What kind of friend would I be, if I don't at least give him one more chance? And then, if he truly rejects me this last time, I'll kill him. Naruto looked to the ground gravely, almost like his spirit was just sucked away. I don't think I can let my friend suffer anymore. He's been living this terrible life and I don't think he knows what he even wants anymore. Naruto rubbed his face with his sleeve as he looked up at the Kyuubi again, determination evident upon his face. I'll stop the war. That much is certain. But if I have to bring Sasuke down to end the war once and for all, then, so be it. The Nine Tails looked at Naruto curiously from his sudden declaration. It seems the boy has matured. Although, Naruto said as he started to walk away again, even if I can't stop Sasuke, there's nothing to stop me from trying to get all of that hate inside of you. He smiled as the fox looked at him peculiarly. I know how it feels to be ruined with hatred. I understand. The fox only raged at him as he walked away. I'm the Nine Tails. I am hatred. I can't be changed by a child. Naruto only smiled at him as he looked in his eyes. I'm not a child, but we'll see how it goes. So long. The fox watched as Naruto disappeared from sight. If he can't save his friend, what makes him think he can save me? == The night was dark minus a bright moon that lit up the landscape. Two men dressed in dark cloaks walked slowly across the forest with only the sounds of leaves crunching beneath their feet. One man was assisting the other with walking as they kept a steady pace in an unknown direction. What do you know of the Akatsuki? The man with long white hair and frail body asked the other. I thought I knew more than you did, Nagato, the other man with red Sharingan eyes said to the other. The pale man sighed as he continued hobbling forward. We were both being used, Itachi. They only kept us around for our ocular powers. You know, Itachi said as he looked over to his limping companion, with your six paths power, your Rinnegan, and my Sharingan, we could do anything. Nagato scoffed lightly, you were always wrapped in darkness, even when you were within the Akatsuki. Nagato's mind lingered on the thought of Konan. Even though his death and resurrection was almost instantaneous in his mind, he still didn't know how much time had passed from when he last saw his last teammate, Konan. I hope that you're okay, wherever you are. == Naruto, B, and Konan finally reached the valleys and had been running for about half an hour through the center of the crevice. It wasn't long before Naruto noticed something that astonished him. What is it, Naruto? B asked simply as they continued dashing. What's going on? Naruto questioned apprehensively, what are all of these fuzzy things? It wasn't long before two people stormed in upon the trio. A crater formed as a man looked up with fierce eyes. Naruto and the gang were startled at the sudden entry, but B knew what was happening all too well. B bro, what are you doing here? The Raikage sneered angrily, don't play dumb. We're here to stop you. Naruto looked over to Tsunade who seemed to be alive and well since he last saw her. Granny, is what he's saying true? The Hokage looked over to the Raikage and then back towards the trio. She closed her eyes and sighed before opening them again. Yes, we have orders to stop you all from advancing forward. We cannot let you pass, yelled the Raikage as he took a more proper fighting stance. Tsunade looked over to Naruto and caught a gasp as she witnessed his new form. You've mastered the control of the Nine Tails power. You've done well. She looked over and noticed Konan was behind him, but her eyes seemed a lot less cloudy and more focused than the last time she saw her. So, Konan has made it this far. I'm impressed. Looks like I wasn't wrong about her. Bro, B shouted to A, Naruto's gotta get through. Don't worry, I'll make sure that he do what he gotta do. You dare to oppose me? A yelled at B, we're doing this to keep you safe. If they get a hold of you, then the enemy will finish the jutsu and the world will end as we know it, finished Naruto. We've already heard it from Iruka. You fools. Do you even know what you're doing? Shouted the Raikage. Naruto looked down and thought about everyone that was fighting for him. They were all fighting to protect him and he was doing nothing. He felt anger boil at his stomach for being so useless. I can't stand the fact that people are dying for me. I don't want to be the only person left alive. What use is having a world if there's only one person left? That's a risk that we're willing to take. A snarled to Naruto, you will not pass, boy. == I will not fail them. Naruto had successfully evaded past the Raikage with his Kyuubi chakra speed. Everyone stood aghast as the fight ended with Naruto's success. Konan couldn't even follow Naruto with her eyes. This was the first time she had ever seen anyone so fast outside of the yellow flash. Tsunade said out loud. If I fail, then I'm not a savior, Naruto said with his back turned away from so, I won't fail. I will be the savior that my dad made me to be. The Raikage stood silently, reflecting on everything that Naruto had said. Then, he let out a small chuckle filled with mirth. You're only the second person to have evaded my fastest punch. I guess. We really do have a savior. Everyone smiled as turned around and looked at Naruto in the eye. Go forth. Naruto smiled as well, but instead of happiness, it was more on confidence. Yes sir. Naruto started to dash forward ahead as B and Konan looked upon what transpired there. B gave Konan a toothy grin and started to run forward, following Naruto several paces behind. Konan looked over to the Raikage and saw the look of uncertainty, but some small newfound confidence in the boy. She turned to Tsunade who was walking forward to her, surprising her at the same time as she called Konan's name. I see you've been taking care of Naruto this entire time. Konan stared at the woman a little before she responded, yes, I've done everything in my power to make sure that he obtains his goals. Naruto made such a change in my life, that I owe him more than I could ever repay. Tsunade smiled as she reached into her robe. At first, I was uncertain about you. Naruto brought you out of the blue into Konoha and caused quite a stir with your appearance. Seeing you today changed my opinion of you entirely. She pulled out a black cloth from her robe as she continued talking. You've stayed with Naruto and you've given him the encouragement that he needed. Losing Sakura must have hurt him severely. Tsunade choked a little as she said her deceased student's name. After taking a deep breath and blinking a few times, she continued, therefore, I've come to give you something. Tsunade turned the cloth around and Konan saw a brand new forehead protector. It had the kanji for shinobi written on the plate. Konan's eyes widened before she grabbed the new protector from Tsunade's hands. I believe you've proven just how much we can trust you. Everyone currently wears these headbands. We are all fighting for the same cause. I believe you're fighting for the same cause too. That's why, I'm giving this to you, Konan. You deserve it. Konan looked at the headband with wide eyes as she watched her reflection. Her thoughts went back to the first time she was in Konoha and how much has happened until now. Being saved by Naruto. Living her life in Konoha. Dealing with the mean looks and stares. Living with Naruto and how much they progressed as friends. Making new friends with people of the Leaf Village. Standing side by side with a true savior that she believed in. Everything that she went through to get to this moment. Her eyes watered as she gripped the headband with her hand. She chuckled softly and smiled a genuine smile that surprised Tsunade greatly before she broke out into a smile of her own. She took off her leaf headband and replaced it with the shinobi headband, tying it firmly in place with two straps dangling. She felt so invigorated as she wore the headband. Thank you. Tsunade-sama. You're welcome. =TLO==. The sun rose over the mountains and exposed all of the dark patches of land to light. The birds started to chirp and the horizon was embellished with purple and orange hues. Two men walked along the trail in a direction that they did not know. They had been walking for hours with no signs of stopping. But with the daylight approaching, the men did not know when they were going into battle. We've been walking since the sun rose, Itachi said, concerned just exactly where he's going. It must be time to fight by now. But, with whom? Nagato asked in curiosity. The grass crunched against their feet as they continued to walk into the direction of the sun. =TLO==. Naruto, B, and Konan had been running since they left the two cage from earlier. They had also had a run-in with Zetsu clones disguised as regular shinobi, but they were all taken care of by the trio. After that, Naruto and the gang continued to run and it had been at least an hour since they defeated the Zetsu. Naruto would look behind him and see Konan smiling with a lot more vigor than ever before. He had never seen her smile that long. It was then that he noticed her new headband. Hey, Konan, I see you got a new forehead protector. Konan looked back up to Naruto who surprised her with his sudden interest in talking to her. She smiled again as she spoke. Yes, Tsunade-sama gave it to me before we left that valley. Naruto smiled at Konan who smiled back at him genuinely. She was happy that he was talking to her like he used to before. Although, there was a pain in her heart from before. She felt terrible for doing what she did to Naruto. Even though rejecting someone isn't normally bad, she felt that she could have handled it better. Her thoughts kept up with her on the topic ever since she said those things to him. They never escaped her mind. She knew that she just had to say something about everything that had happened between them. She wanted to make sure that there was no more bad blood between them. "Hey, Naruto-kun," Konan brought up. Naruto looked behind him at her since he heard her tone of voice. He didn't like it at all. "I just wanted to say. I'm sorry for the mean things I said to you before," she said as she turned her head. "I was way out of line whenever I brought up Sakura-san. I shouldn't have done that and I was wrong." Naruto looked back at her before he looked straight ahead. He glimpsed at her face and noticed that she was looking away from him. He chuckled a little. "Hey, don't worry about it, Konan-chan. I understand." She looked up to him again with wide eyes. She didn't expect him to take it so casually. "I mean," Naruto spoke up again, "I know that I'm just too young and it wouldn't work out between us. Honestly, I apologize for even trying. I was just being silly. As if relationships like that could really work out. You just find someone else that's better than me anyway." Konan looked up at the boy with shock, but frowned solemnly at his words. "It's the other way around, Naruto. I'm just not ready for something like that. I have no trust with that kind of relationship. I don't want to be hurt or regret my decision, but..." "Hey, like I said," Naruto said with a small smile, "don't worry about it. I'm fine now. I can move on from it. So, don't be sad, okay? I'm happy." Naruto smiled as he looked forward again, but Konan could see the hurt in his expression, even if he wasn't showing it. "Naruto-kun." While they ran through the woods, Naruto immediately noticed a sudden presence. His shock was noticed to the others as he stopped in front of two men who were talking side by side. One was walking in tow with the other. "Uchiha Itachi and Nagato," Naruto shouted as he stopped in his tracks. "Oh my god, Nagato." Naruto turned and saw Konan with a grief-stricken look upon her features. B looked confused at the entire situation. Do you know these guys?" "Yeah, both of them," Naruto shouted in alert. Nagato widened his eyes in surprise, but smiled widely as he saw his old enemy and partner side by side. He never expected to see them so soon, but he was happy to know that they were both still alive. "I see my plan worked," he said with a confident smile. "Naruto. Konan. It's good to see you again." Chapter 24, Reunion. Naruto and Konan stood in shock as they gazed upon the resurrected body of the man they formerly knew as Nagato. The look upon their faces was written with confusion and sadness as they stared at the man that they used to know look back upon them with a wide smile. Itachi looked over to Nagato and witnessed a seemingly interesting reunion take place upon them all. "For you, it's been a while since we last met, hasn't it?" Nagato stated as he looked over to his ex-enemy. "For me, it's only been moments, but I can already tell that you look different, Naruto." Naruto smiled confidently at the man. "You've taught me everything that I needed to know about hatred and pain. I have nothing to worry about now." "That's good," Nagato said with a grin as he looked over to his still-alive partner. "Konan, I see that you're wearing leaf attire. I'm assuming Naruto brought you to the Leaf Village like I had hoped." Konan flinched greatly at this sudden news but smiled in determination. "So, it was true then. You really did plan that far ahead." Nagato nodded simply as he looked at them both. "I knew that Madara would come for you, Konan. I couldn't let him take my teammate from this earth whenever she still had so much left to give." Her face contorted as she looked over to the side. She looked in pain from the sudden revelation. "So, you suddenly came up with this plan, Nagato? You brought Naruto and me together because you thought it would work?" Nagato looked over to his friend in shock, but stood firm as he tried to speak up. "Yes. There was no doubt in my mind that Naruto would need as much help as he could get. It was only better that he could offer you protection and you to him as well, so I wouldn't have to see my friend in the afterlife so early." There was a moment of silence as everyone looked at each other in amazement. Itachi gazed upon the man that he was holding and felt like there was something more to him than he thought before. It seemed that Nagato was actually planning things more than he realized. "Thank you," Konan said as she looked at her resurrected teammate. She looked up to him and showed him a gentle smile with tears that welled up in the corners of her eyes. "You were right about Madara aiming for my life. If it wasn't for Naruto-kun, I would have been done for. Your plan did work." Nagato looked at Konan with disbelief before he broke out into a smile of his own. "It seems like you and Naruto have created a strong bond. The last person you ever had an affectionate tone for was myself and Yahiko, but that was years ago." Konan-chan didn't exactly have it easy. Naruto brought up as he stared down to the ground in remembrance. She nearly died, and if I wasn't there, then she truly would have. I brought her to Konoha, hoping that she would have it better there, but the people there were mean to her. Naruto continued as he looked up to Nagato with a strong face. She withstood through it all and I helped her along the way. I knew that Konan-chan wasn't as bad as everyone thought she was. I knew that somehow I could bring everyone to her side. Konan looked at Naruto in a concerned stare. Her thoughts rambled on the time she was in Konoha and how everyone treated her as nothing more than a slave or someone that couldn't be looked at. The corners of her lips lowered in remorse. But, Naruto continued as he looked over to Konan again with a grin, people started to come around. Kakashi-sensei seemed to not mind her at all. Captain Yamato, Guy-sensei and even Granny Tsunade started to notice that she wasn't all bad. Konan looked over to Naruto and saw his determined happy grin that he was throwing her way, and she could only widen her eyes in astonishment. She never really noticed how many people noticed her. Even though things always seemed like they were never getting better to her, she realized that more and more people really were starting to see her as someone other than an enemy. She saw the look in Naruto's eyes and saw his sincerity towards her. She saw the warmth that shone through and couldn't help but feel captivated by such an honest person. He could do it because he was someone like her. Someone who was once an outcast or a pariah. Things changed, and they changed for the better. She looked at Naruto's current situation and noticed that everyone loves Naruto now. Everyone respects him. Konan looked at her hands and could feel emotions swell in her chest. Maybe she could actually turn around in the village after all? Remembering those few people that actually view her as a comrade and not so much as an enemy, gave her exciting feelings. She broke out into a warm smile again as she looked at Naruto. Naruto-kun. Nagato looked at them both, quite surprised at the interaction that was being played out before him. He looked over to Naruto and saw him blushing and rubbing his head as he looked to Konan, who was giving Naruto the most gentle and caring smile he ever saw her give. I haven't seen her smile like that since. Nagato smirked as he looked at the both of them. Naruto, Konan, you've done well this entire time. Unfortunately, you must fight Itachi and me soon. Our master will use us at any moment. Wait, Naruto shouted as he looked at both of the men, I have a couple of questions that I need to ask you. What is it, Naruto? Naruto looked down to the ground before he looked back up. He lifted his hands up in a shrugging, questioning position. I'm just wondering. Why did you lie about the Uzumaki genocide and how you're related to me? Nagato looked confused on the outside. On the inside, he didn't think that Naruto would be able to figure out the information so quickly. He looked to Konan, who didn't give off any information about what Naruto was talking about, but he looked at Naruto and saw the look in his eye about it. He saw the seriousness that was etched onto his features. What do you mean, Naruto? Can you explain? Naruto grit his teeth as he spoke. You know what I mean. I've talked to my mother and she told me that she doesn't know what the Uzumaki massacre was. Nagato reeled at this unexpected news. Naruto talked to Kushina? Itachi looked just as surprised at this sudden detail as he looked on at this new conversation. He didn't want to interrupt on the fear that they wouldn't have enough time to discuss all of this. This was news to Itachi and he was curious to how things were playing out currently. Not only that, Naruto spoke up again as he looked at Nagato with arched eyebrows. Before she disappeared, when I told her that it was you who told me, she said your name. But not in a confused way, but in a way that she knew who I was talking about. My mother sounded like she knew you. What are you hiding from me? Nagato, what is Naruto saying? Konan asked as this information did pique her interest. Just the thought of Nagato knowing who Naruto's mother was new information to her. Nagato never really talked about his family or any friends that he had before he left Uzushiogakure. She assumed the emotional scar from it all was too jarring for him to speak up about. Even when she would ask him, he would always brush it off or get angry. She would just leave it alone and never really spoke about it with him again. Itachi turned his curiosity toward Nagato and looked in his eyes. He could see some type of emotion dwelling there. He just didn't know what. Nagato closed his eyes and sighed softly. He knew this day would come, but he ultimately didn't think that he would have to bring it up. It was something that he needed to get off of his chest anyway. Naruto. What I'm about to tell you is the truth. The Uzumaki massacre was not a lie. My family and I were quick to leave the village before the outbreak of the big fight that occurred there. He looked down in sadness as he spoke of everything. My mother and father left with me as we went to Ame to escape the impending destruction. We had no choice. We were very aware of what was going on at the time. Kushina wouldn't remember. Father made it very clear to keep her happy so that she wouldn't be too scared about being separated from us by grandfather. A sharp pang ripped through Naruto's chest as he stared, shocked by the bombshell that was just dropped. Everything went black and not a sound could be heard as Naruto tried to comprehend what his ex-nemesis just said. He could only raise his hand to point. You. What you're saying is. You. Yes. It's true. Kushina Uzumaki is my sister. Everyone with the exception of B, couldn't help but look aghast as the information sank into everyone's heads. Itachi's eyes widened at this revelation. Hearing this news suddenly answered a lot of questions that he had for Nagato. So, that's why you assigned me as watch over the Nine Tails. Not only for my brother and my knowledge of Konoha, but also for Naruto? Yes, Nagato spoke up, Naruto was a priority. Do not get me wrong. I was still under the impression that Konoha and everyone else was what was wrong with the world, but that was only because of what Konoha did to my family. Once I heard that Kushina had died as well in Konoha after the Kyuubi extraction, I assumed that Konoha was only using Kushina to birth a child and would kill her afterward. My mom didn't birth me for the village, Naruto shouted as she looked at Nagato with intense eyes. His fists clenched as tears welled against his cheeks. He rubbed his cheeks with his sleeve as he looked to Nagato. My mother wanted to have me. She had a peaceful life in Konoha and no one bothered her because she had my dad there. It was Madara. Nagato's face paled as he heard Naruto utter something utterly dreadful. It was Madara that killed my mother. He extracted the Kyuubi from her and left her to die. My father went to protect her and the village at the cost of his own life. Naruto pointed at himself at his chest. I'm the only testament left of them and their strength. Nagato looked down to the ground as he took in all of this information that was splayed before him. His fist clenched against his side and he grit his teeth. That damn Madara. He will pay dearly for all of this. He used my anger and played me like a puppet. I was told that they killed Kushina and was going to use you as a killing machine. I had nothing to live for anymore after that news he gave me. Nagato, Konan said as she heard everything that was said between them. She never knew any of this. She didn't know Nagato had any family left. She didn't even know that Naruto was this closely related to Nagato. This was news to her just as it was to him. Don't worry, Nagato, Naruto said as he looked to the man, my mother died happy. She told me herself. Nagato looked at Naruto and at Konan before he breathed a sigh in defeat. I was played. But that doesn't mean that the battle is over. Far from it. Naruto, he called out to the boy as they stood across from each other, I gave you the power of the Rinnegan. I hope it has come in handy during these times. Naruto nodded as he displayed his Rinnegan proudly. Yes, I have trained with the help of Konan-chan to improve my ability with them. I'm a lot better now than I was when I first started using them, although, Naruto said as he went out of Kyuubi mode, it changed my hair to an orange color. I still think that it's weird. Nagato looked at Naruto as he showed him his natural hair color and Nagato was mildly surprised at this. Interesting. Your hair changing color is an unusual side effect of the activation of the Rinnegan. But, from the way I see it, your hair looks more red than orange to me. Konan observed the boy's head. Nagato is right. Your hair does look darker and redder than before. I never noticed until he brought it to our attention. So, Naruto spoke up, my hair is turning into my mom's hair color? Nagato smiled slightly, it would seem so. You're looking more like an Uzumaki every day. Well, I don't really like having red hair color, but I guess that I can get used to it, he said awkwardly as he scratched the back of his head. Naruto, Itachi said as he gained the attention of the boy, I must ask. Itachi couldn't finish his question as he involuntarily began weaving hand seals and spit a large fireball jutsu in Naruto's direction. They barely managed to avoid it as everyone evaded the technique. The battle proceeded until Itachi and Nagato were taking a break, most likely having stopped because the master stopped moving them. Itachi looked over to his partner and noticed that there wasn't much of a difference in his face, although, it did seem that something was stirring within him. A stronger emotion that seemed to give Nagato a greater sense of vigor. I can't believe how much Nagato has changed just through these simple interactions. Naruto and Konan looked onwards to their opponents and realized that the current battle was on hold. They were confused but they kept their guard up anyway. Naruto, I have to ask, Itachi spoke up, what has happened with Sasuke? Naruto looked down as he gathered his thoughts. Sasuke, he isn't the same. He's changed and Madara had something to do with that. Itachi gazed at Naruto thoughtfully. So, Madara showed him the truth. Yeah, Naruto responded sadly, He found out about your plans from the past to prevent the coup. Now, Sasuke wants revenge on Konoha for all of the things that the village forced his brother to do. Nagato, stunned at the revelation, turned to Itachi. A coup? Is this true? Itachi thought quietly. Madara really did know his past and used that to his advantage. He forced Sasuke to rebel against the Leaf Village since it hurt his brother so dearly to him. Madara. You're truly a terrible person. So, I was right to leave my trust in you then for Sasuke's sake? Naruto looked away as the older man eyed him curiously. He needed to know the truth. Naruto couldn't lie to him. Actually, I feel that Sasuke is far too gone in the head. Although, I'm willing to give Sasuke one last chance to change. And if he doesn't? Naruto looked Itachi in the eye. Naruto's hardened stare piercing through to the man. He could feel the chill wafting throughout his senses. I'll have to kill him. For his peace and for the peace of the world, Naruto said as he looked down to his feet. His eyes lowered in remorse, but that doesn't mean that I'm not going to try. I'll try my best to prevent that from happening. I'm going to work hard to make sure that Sasuke sees the truth whether he wants to or not. He's my friend after all. Naruto kept going, but his voice lowered as if he couldn't continue. If Sasuke doesn't change, then... Naruto trailed off, leaving Itachi to ponder on all of these new implications. Itachi felt a pang in his heart from the news of his brother's defection and also of his brother's hatred for the Leaf Village that Itachi swore to protect. His eyes lowered in sadness, but he knew deep down that Naruto was right. Sasuke may not want to answer to Naruto and may end up giving his life to a fruitless cause with no answer. Itachi looked to Naruto after a few moments of pondering. Just maybe. Itachi's Mangekyo activated, dripping blood down his cheeks. Everyone else proceeded to get into a fighting stance before Naruto started choking. Naruto-kun, Konan shouted in surprise as the boy kept choking to reveal a black feathery bird that protruded from his mouth. Its left eye revealed another Mangekyo Sharingan it activated while staring at Itachi, and for a moment, Itachi felt something loosen within him. His movement left unimpeded, he sighed softly as he started to move again. Wait, Itachi, what are you doing? Naruto asked, surprised, while clearing his throat. His hands were still to his throat as he tried to calm the sore feeling from the sudden release of the raven. What was that? Itachi calmly responded, I gave you this raven that has a comrade's Sharingan I embedded within his left eye back when I was still alive. Naruto suddenly remembered as his memory filled him with realization. His eyes widened, but Itachi continued, I left it there with a genjutsu that would alter Sasuke's reasoning and force him to realize the error of his ways and rejoin the Leaf Village, although, with the current situation and the way this battle is currently going, you may need my help after all. Naruto continued to gaze at the man as Itachi continued, I used the Mangekyo from the bird to cancel the Edo Tensei rules. This allows me to roam freely in this body and give you the help that you need. Itachi turned to Nagato, who looked surprised at the sudden turnaround of the fight. Itachi, you are truly amazing. Not even death can keep you down. Itachi smiled solemnly at the man as he activated his Mangekyo Sharingan once again. For the moment, it seems you are right. I still have some unfinished business here, it seems. Nagato smiled before he felt a sudden strong object pierce through his chest. He looked down and then back to the object that was piercing him. Sorry, Nagato, Itachi said calmly, this must be done. We have to seal you before you do anything else rash by the master of the Edo Tensei. Nagato still smiled as he looked at the people in front of him. He was reminded of everything. Everything that led to this point. The sudden change in Naruto and how the world is currently fighting for their lives. Working together against a common evil enemy. Something he never thought he could do, but yet Naruto was currently achieving this possibility. Thank you, Itachi. I wouldn't want to make anyone's lives any harder than it already is. I've learned my lesson back when I was alive. Nagato chuckled as his sight fell to Naruto. Naruto, you're doing a good job. Thank you for showing me the answer back then. I was just so stubborn. To think my nephew would really be this amazing. I'll have to thank Kushina once I get to the other side. He looked over to Konan, who seemed to be looking at him in sadness. Her eyes were watering while she saw him. She couldn't hold it. All of this time, he had been gone and now he's leaving again. She's still just as cute as when we first met. Konan, it's all right. I already had my time on Earth. I'm happier now, especially now that I know that you have Naruto. She started to lightly sob as she smiled. Yes. I have Naruto now. Everything is fine. Thank you. Nagato. Without you, I don't know if I would have ever made it. Nagato smiled at his old teammate, anything for you. You. You were there for me when no one else was. I saw that when it was too late. But now. Everything is fine. You and Naruto. You both have something. It grew into something unbreakable. Nagato's skin started to chip away each second, but the smile on his face never left. Things may get even harder as time goes on, but promise me that you both will follow your heart. Be strong. Konan. Please continue to look after Naruto. You two are the only family that I have left. Konan wiped away her tears with her fingers as she smiled at the tattered man on the ground. I will, Nagato. Nagato looked over to Naruto, who had a solemn look on his face. Nagato still smiled nonetheless. Naruto. Naruto's eyes darted to the man, but the look on his face didn't change. You are the light to this world. I was merely a tool to get you there. A dud. A flop. But you. You are the real hero of this story. I know we didn't have much time to bond with each other, but the time that we had was irreplaceable. I'm glad that you're my nephew. Naruto's eyes started to water as well as he tried his best to hold in his tears, but was failing to do so. Thanks. Uncle Nagato. Nagato only smiled even brighter as his time faded before his eyes. Thanks. For protecting Konan. Naruto grinned in a half-effort to keep from choking up again from the tears. I'll keep doing it too. Naruto's last statement fell on deaf ears as Nagato faded entirely and was sealed within gourd held by Itachi's Susanoo. Naruto and Konan stood in thought as everything was finished. Nagato left them with a lasting impression. All of their questions seemed to be answered from this interaction. No one knew what to say. The only thing that remained was Naruto's will as he held himself back up on his feet and stood proudly. Newfound determination emanating from his person. Come on, Konan-chan. We have things we need to do. Konan looked at the ground before she looked back up to Naruto. She saw the look in his eyes and her worries and fears vanished again as she saw his warm smile that enraptured her. Nagato. Thank you for your words. I believe. I can move on from your death now. She smiled at Naruto as she nodded her head. Her eyes didn't betray her emotions. The uncertainty of the outcome that encapsulated her mind was suddenly ended. Maybe there was something that was moving them along? Maybe there was a higher being that made all of this possible? It led her here, at this place, at this moment. What could she say? She didn't know the future, but she knew that Naruto would succeed. That was all that she needed. Chapter 25-1, the last one. Rain pattered against the dirt-stained glass as a lone girl sat beside the window. The daylight peered through the glass and splashed against the desk that the girl was sitting at. Her hands fiddled with a piece of paper that had many crinkles and even a minor tear that creased against a corner of the paper. Her eyes glowed from the flame that danced on the candle wick. Her amber eyes never left the paper that she held with both hands. She knew what she wanted out of that paper. It was hers and she practiced on it every day. If the paper wore too much, then she would get another. Paper was precious in her eyes, so she used one piece of paper continuously until it fell apart. She folded the last edge into what she would now call a dog. Her eyes lit up with excitement as she set it on the table and watched it intently. Her hands gripped the table and her eyes studied the paper dog that she created. Her wonder and excitement were unparalleled. Her days of practice finally paid off. She could now say that she can create a dog. It couldn't move or bark, but the creation itself to her was a masterpiece and the many wrinkles in the dog's form were to prove it. Oh, that's very nice, Kaken, a woman's voice said behind her. Konan turned around with a wide smile. I've finally made it, Mommy. It took me so long, but I can finally do it. Her mother came up to the desk and picked up the dog. Konan's smile beamed directly at her as her mother gave her best thoughtful impression. I don't see anything wrong with it, dear. I think your father will appreciate it a lot. He knows how much you like origami. Konan watched as her mom put the origami back onto the table. Do you know when Daddy will be back? Her mother sighed before turning around. You know how your father is. He is a very busy man. The rain doesn't help any of the work he does either, but we can't afford to live anywhere else. She looked up to the clock thoughtfully. I don't think he will be too much longer. Konan smiled innocently at her mom before looking back at her origami dog. She could wait until he came back. He was busy, so it's not like she was in a hurry. Her dog would always sit there. Footsteps from the front door alerted both of the people inside the house. The mother smiled softly as she peered down to Konan. Well, it seems like your father is here after all. Konan smiled as she saw the door open and an average height man walked into the home. The water dripped to the floor heavily from his clothing in a faint pitter-patter. The water trailed through the cracks of the wood flooring into the empty abyss underneath. The man looked exhausted, but also, there was a look in his eyes. The mother gazed at the man and her eyes also lost their glint. She knew. The mother walked into another room while the father started turning everything off and looking around for something. Konan picked up her dog that she had made and walked over to her father. "Look, Daddy. I made a dog. Do you like it?" Her father glanced over momentarily, before turning back to what he was doing. There was something about his attitude that unsettled Konan. "Daddy, are you all right?" Her dad didn't answer as he kept looking around and grabbed a bag to start packing things. Konan didn't like not being answered. "Daddy, what are you doing?" "Konan, go help your mother. I have some things that I need to do," he said in a grim voice. He never looked in her direction the entire time. Konan didn't want to leave it that way though. She had to get his attention. She brought her origami dog up to her dad's face. "Look, Daddy. I made this. Won't you at least look at it?" Her dad's eyes shot up to his daughter. He snatched the origami from her hands and threw it in the fire. "Go do what I told you to. I won't tell you again." Konan watched as her paper dog that she worked on caught on fire and blackened to soot. Her eyes widened in silence. It was something that she worked so hard on. Why did he throw it in the fire like that? Why was he being so mean? Her hands clenched to her sides as she bolted out of the front door. Water splashed against her calves with each step, but she didn't care. She just wanted to get away. Away from her mean father and away from his cold stare. She heard him screaming for her from the house, but the more she ran, the more his yelling was drowned out by the heavy rainfall that plagued their homeland. Her eyes and hands clenched tightly as she bolted as fast as her legs would take her. She didn't know where she was going. It didn't matter where she went. She just wanted to go far away from there. After a few minutes, she couldn't see anything anymore except for the rain that fell. She leaned over to catch her breath and whimpered to herself. The anger and frustration caught up to her as she cried softly in the rain. To Konan, that dog was something that she had been working on for weeks. Her father made it one time to show her and Konan tried her best to copy it. She thought it was so amazing that you could create something from only one sheet of paper. Her eyes looked down to her hands at the paper cuts that painted both of her hands. She worked so hard and her father didn't even care. Normally, he would be happy for her whenever she made something. He used to be so warm, but now, he's mean. Regardless of how mean he was to her though, she could never say that she hated him or her mom. She couldn't do that. It wasn't fair. Especially because of all of the things that they've done for her. Konan looked up and saw that she was reaching her special spot. No one knew about it except for her. She trudged up to a rock formation where there was a covering for her to keep herself from getting rained on. She squeezed her shirt to wring out the water that soaked her. She sighed in remorse as she sat down against the rock and watched the rain flood the ground. They wouldn't be able to find her. She would wait for a while to calm herself down before she went back to her home. Her thoughts ran rampant over her father and his attitude towards her and everything that happened with them that day. She didn't want to run away, but she had to. She acted on her anger impulse. Maybe. I shouldn't have done that, she thought while creating a circle in the dirt with her finger. I should probably apologize. But not until later, she thought bitterly. I'll leave later. The rain let up a little bit as she nodded awake. She almost fell asleep. Or did she actually sleep? She didn't know. Her eyes scanned the area and her clothes were finally drying a little bit. She sighed softly as she stood up and stretched. After a yawn, she started to walk back home. There was a somber twilight that covered the sky. It was a bittersweet feeling to come back home after a fight, but where else would she go? She did love her parents even though they did aggravate her sometimes. Her bare feet squished in the mud that she walked through. The tracks disappeared behind her as the rain kept pummeling the mud into oblivion. Her home was a little distance away. She wanted to apologize for running off. She knew that it was the wrong thing to do. She knew she overreacted. Her parents would probably scold her for running away without telling them where she was going. She grinned absent-mindedly as she kept walking. Tlot-a-lot-lot-lo. She came up to her house and noticed all of the lights were off. She remembered that they were in the process of cutting off the lights when she was there. Her eyes cast down to the ground as she watched her feet take every step. They were waiting for her and she knew she was going to get in trouble. She stepped towards the front door and noticed once she got to it that the front door was ever so slightly ajar. Knowing her parents would never leave the door open, her breathing hitched. There was something wrong. Her fingers trembled as she inched towards the cracked entrance. Her eyes stared heavily at the door handle. And Konan. Konan coughed violently as she slowly came to. After rubbing her eye, she looked up to see Naruto staring down back at her with worry etched upon his face. She coughed again as she sat up, bringing her hand to her mouth. Naruto rushed to her side as she pulled her hand away from her mouth. Blood was splattered on her hand and she knew that wasn't a good sign. "Are you okay?" Naruto asked solemnly. Konan gazed at Naruto with a look that couldn't be discerned before she looked around her in confusion. That dream that she had about her parents hit a nerve and it didn't go unnoticed by the boy beside her. "That was a dream I haven't had in a while. I haven't missed it." How could she ever forget that day? It was a jarring memory of the time where she lost her parents. It was when she saw the both of them lying on the floor caked in their own blood and lifeless like dolls. They were murdered and it was a constant reminder that had she not left, she would have been too. "I'm fine," she responded tiredly. "I guess this war has been physically and mentally exhausting me." Naruto pondered on her statement. "You were unconscious for a few minutes, so I couldn't leave you unattended. I already have some medic nin on the way here to heal you." Konan looked surprised. "I was unconscious?" Naruto looked at her with worry in his eyes. "Yes, you were. You've been fighting for a while now, so you can rest. Boss is fighting still, but he sent me to make sure that you're okay. I didn't know if you were going to wake up, but I'm sure glad that you did." Konan noticed the word boss thrown in there, so she already knew that this Naruto was a clone. She observed her surroundings and noticed a lot of action going on a great distance away from her. She sighed tiredly. "I'm okay, Naruto-kun," Konan said as she tried to stand. "I can take a couple of hits." As soon as she said that, she wobbled and lost balance, only for Naruto to come to her aid and catch her. When he got a good look at her, she was battered severely. She had cuts and bruises that covered her from head to toe. There were rips and tears throughout her outfit. She had some blood stains that trickled from her mouth earlier, but was already drying from the breeze that blew constantly. She didn't know if the breeze came from the fight that was happening or if it was natural, but it felt pretty refreshing nonetheless to feel cool air. She was injured, but she seemed to be holding on. "You don't have to push yourself, Konan-chan," Naruto said to her as she swatted his hand away. "Boss is handling things pretty well at the moment. He even has the help of all of the village's cage." Konan furrowed her brow as she wiped her chin. "Naruto, you may not understand, but we are all doing this for you. Myself included." Naruto looked onto her as she spoke. "Not only that, but I'm also doing it for myself. I see the future that you want to create and I'm with you every step of the way. I want that future just as much as you do. Also." She clenched her jaw in frustration. Her right hand balled into a fist tightly. "I have a score to settle with Madara. That bastard will pay for everything. I will make sure his plan and his reign of terror reaches its end." Naruto looked on in shock at her fierce determination as he took in her words. He smiled, but the look of concern never completely disappeared. "I'm here, Naruto. How is Konan?" "Granny? What are you doing here? I assumed you would still be fighting." They saw as the woman came by and ran to Konan's aid as quickly as she could. Dirt pillowed underneath her feet as she came close to them. Her hands were immediately glowing green. "I would be fighting, but currently, all of our medic nin are either attending to fallen ninja or have been injured or killed from the constant attack of White Zetsu. If it wasn't for your thinking earlier and your shadow clones, it would have been a lot worse. I greatly appreciate the help you did for the medics." Tsunade smiled over to Naruto before she looked over Konan and her injuries. After investigating, she sighed as she went over the injured areas and began treating them. "I'm very surprised that you're standing from whatever happened to you. Your injuries contain some ruptured organs. I can heal it, but give me a few minutes. I need to get back to the battlefield, Lady Hokage," Konan said in slight desperation. "I can't have Naruto fighting alone for too long." Tsunade's eyesight shot up to the battered woman's eyes. "You're not leaving until I finish healing you. You are in no shape to go back out there. If anything, you would make Naruto worry about you more than he already does. We can't distract him. He needs to maintain focus." Konan looked down as she grunted in pain from the healing that slowly repaired her internal injuries. She knew that Tsunade was right. She would just slow Naruto down and become a burden if she went out there with her injuries. She could only lay back and have the healing master repair the damages. What was Konan even thinking? She knew better than to go out there like she was, but there was something burning inside of her that wanted her to continue trekking and moving forward. She felt like any type of slowdown would be the end of the shinobi world as they knew it. She wanted to aid them in any way possible. It hurt to think that she could suddenly become a burden to the others fighting, when she felt so strongly about what she was trying to achieve. Thinking of Naruto losing because of her involvement really put a sting on her heart and her want to protect him. This only meant that she needed to work harder in order to help him in her own way. She wasn't out yet. Please stay safe, Naruto-kun. I'll be there shortly. Flashback. Earlier, Konan and Naruto ended up finally joining the battlefield. After helping everyone and squaring everything away with the white Zetsu that seemed to infiltrate every camp and squad that they had no choice but to split Naruto up through shadow clones and have him help each camp by locating the Zetsu that were disguised as other shinobi. If Naruto wasn't there when he was, then many more lives would have been lost. That's not to say that lives weren't lost already, but Naruto did what he could to prevent any more catastrophe that could have jeopardized the entire war. It also helped that Kisame kept his end of the bargain and didn't give out information to Madara or Kabuto. This helped in the prevention of the enemy finding the location of the Turtle Island. Once Naruto was able to locate the Zetsu and eliminated them, he began to help seal all of the other resurrected forms of previous shinobi. The battles were fierce, but with Naruto's current quick wit, they were able to handle the sealings more swiftly and efficiently. This allowed more hands to be ready to battle in other places and gave higher advantages to other battles that probably would have been in crisis had they not finished as they did. After the impure resurrection disappeared by Itachi's control, Madara felt annoyed by this sudden turn, but even he knew that the impure resurrection was only a bonus help and not much of big game changer. Naruto and Konan finally caught up to him and met him at his statue that he created from the combination of the Baijuu. Naruto. Kakashi-sensei. How's everything going so far? Naruto stopped next to the other three that were standing next to him. One was Kakashi, who looked bruised and beaten, but not defeated. The other was Might Guy, who seemed only scratched with some slight tearing to his outfit, but other than that, no worse for wear. Finally, Yamato was bruised pretty roughly. He seemed to be worn out, but he looked more willing than Kakashi did. Kakashi was glad to see both Naruto and Konan show up when they did because he could honestly use a little break. Honestly, things are not looking great. We've been trying our best to stall for time. You coming when you did most likely saved my life, so I thank you for that. He smiled an almost deflated smile, but kept his composure nonetheless. Naruto could only smile back as he looked on ahead with vigor to his opponent. I wouldn't worry about anything right now. Now that we're here, I don't think it will be an issue. His face took on a more serious look. Where are the cage? Kakashi only nodded. Right, well, the cage have taken front stage at the statue a few minutes ago, trying to destroy it, but nothing is working so far. I've been keeping Madara busy, but that has run its course. Statue? What statue? He asked while looking around with his hand in a salute, but immediately spotted something unusual and human-like sitting in the distance. Whoa! What is that thing? That is the statue of the combined Baijuu. All of the Baijuu are sealed into that thing, Kakashi said seriously. Naruto couldn't believe that that monstrosity held all of the Baijuu, and he could only gulp in anticipation of what was to come. He knew that the statue needed to be stopped, but he also knew that now he was here, he had to do something about Madara. Konan looked at the statue that was in the distance and could only witness it in awe. There was an uncomfortable feeling that came from the statue, and she couldn't help but shiver from the object. What an unbelievable power I'm feeling just from the statue. Is this the power that Nagato was wanting to acquire? Wait, Konan shouted quickly, noticing something about the statue. I remember this. Naruto and company looked back to her in surprise. Really? What is this thing? Konan looked down in remorse as she thought back to her time she didn't want to remember. That was the ghetto statue that Nagato created with his Rinnegan when our past teammate Yahiko was killed. So, that's what that statue was for? For containing the Baijuu? Some truth bombs were hitting hard as she realized just how much she didn't understand about the shinobi world. I always just thought that it was a power that was meant to help Nagato with strength. A Kekkei Genkai of sorts. I didn't realize that it was something this diabolical. Konan, it's okay, Naruto said to her, bringing her out of her thoughts. It doesn't matter what it is. At the end of the day, we are going to destroy it and stop Madara's plans from happening. It doesn't matter what you try, boy, Madara said, bringing everyone's attention to him. You'll be there to witness my creation and dream come true. It doesn't matter if it came from the Rinnegan. At the end of the day, you're only pawns in my ultimate end goal, just like Nagato and the rest. Konan clenched her fist in frustration. She knew that Madara was trying to toy with her emotions, but she couldn't help her anger that seemed to well deep inside her stomach. This man in front of her. He was the one that created all of this hell. She didn't know what the future held, but she knew that it didn't involve Madara. She would make sure of it. Konan smiled and chuckled softly, gaining the attention of the others around her and gaining suspicion from Madara. You think this is all some game, don't you? You think human lives are just a joke and worth nothing. Funnily enough, Madara, you've finally met your match when you came across us. If you think that we will lay down and die, then you're mistaken. Your defeat has already been written, but you just haven't noticed it yet. Madara eyed her angrily before he stanced himself to prepare for battle. No use in reasoning with the dumb and ignorant. Very well, if you think you can defeat me, then by all means try. But know this, his voice became darker, you will not win. Naruto looked on to the both of them and smirked before he got into a stance as well. Thanks, Konan-chan. You really made me excited to finish this guy, you know. Yeah, Kakashi said as he came back into a stance, I think I have a little more left in me as well. Yamato finally spoke up after listening to everything that took place. Well, maybe I can be useful somewhere? This is great. So much youth burns in everyone here. It's blinding, Guy yelled as he pumped his fist. Everyone prepared with excitement that they haven't had this entire fight. They knew what was coming. Let's go. Start Part 2. The battle was ongoing and ever intense as both parties attempted to outplay the other. It had been well over a few minutes since the battle began, but it didn't seem like either side was getting the upper hand. An explosion erupted as devastating attacks swept through the premises. An orange blur whipped through the air with expanding Rasengan's in each hand and attempted to impale the chakra spheres against Madara. Naruto only ended up phasing through the enemy, hitting a boulder behind him, and causing another explosion to occur. Madara, quick to find Naruto off guard, tried to grab him, only to have Kakashi step in with Kamui to counter the grab that the Madara was trying to do. Frustrated, Naruto activated his Rinnegan and concentrated the chakra in his hand, forming another Rasengan. Then using his right hand, he concentrated another attack, but this one was different. Smirking, Naruto pulled Madara towards him with Banshu Tenin, completely taking him by surprise before Naruto attempted to plunge the Rasengan within his gut. Naruto, thinking he won, only found that his hand fell through Madara and completely missed him. This window of opportunity didn't go unnoticed by Madara as he attempted to catch Naruto again, only for Paper Shuriken to fly towards him and make him go transparent. Naruto jumped back to take a breather. Thanks, Konan-chan. That was a hairy situation, Naruto yelled over to his teammate as he landed next to her on a boulder. She only sighed before responding, Naruto, please be more aware of what you're doing. Paper fluttered around her as she created wings and lifted herself off of the ground. So, you think you're going to win this time, Konan? Madara replied evilly, you should have just died and succumbed to your failures, but I guess I'll put you in your place again. Konan lowered her eyes as she focused her jutsu. Her paper started to swirl around her as she gathered her chakra. She knew that she couldn't surprise him with the moves that she already showed him. She knew they wouldn't work as well the second time, but she needed to do something in order to help Naruto at any cost. Naruto was having a rough time trying to even hit Madara at all, so it was understandable that they needed to work together to get to him. Konan's eyes widened as she flew over to Naruto in haste. She had a plan, but she didn't know if it would work. This is what I want us to do. I have a plan, but you're going to have to make more Rasengans and clones. Oh, that's easy. Okay, I need you to make those clones. I'm going to substitute some of your clones with clones of my own, but make them explosive paper clones. I don't think that we will be able to hit him, unless we surprise him with something he wouldn't suspect. Naruto's grin widened as he gave the thumbs up. That sounds like a good idea. Let's do it. Madara watched curiously as Naruto threw up the hand signs for the Shadow Clone Jutsu and created what seemed to be around 50 clones. Half created Rasengans while the other half helped them. Then, they all started to charge forward towards the masked man. He only scoffed as he went to dodge the simple attacks. Once the attacks went through, however, the other clones that came close suddenly exploded, catching Madara by surprise and hitting him with brunt force for the first two explosions. The rest of the explosions were ignored by the man through his transparency jutsu. Yes, Naruto shouted loudly, we finally got a hit. Smoke was billowing from the location where Madara was standing. No one could see through the smoke and were waiting anxiously to see if anything was done to the man. Once the smoke started to clear, Madara's mask broke from his face. The mask fell into several broken pieces from the impact of the explosions that caught him off guard. He looked towards the people in front of him with great distaste. Everything went black for Kakashi as he looked at the enemy's face. Memories of times long gone resurfaced and hit him with emotions that he never wanted to feel while he was fighting. This is a war. But he knew what he was gazing upon wasn't just something that was chance. He very well knew that this person that was standing before him shouldn't be alive. Obito? The man in question looked back at him in slight confusion before he smiled devilishly. Oh, you mean you recognize this face? Sorry, but I'm not Obito. This body came in handy whenever my body decided to give out. Didn't I tell you before? My name is Madara Uchiha. Kakashi, shocked by this sudden news, looked on in horror. In front of him stood a ghost from the past, a friend who had died many years, yet, here he was, standing in front of him. Then it all began to click. You, he said, regaining his composure, you're using Obito's body as a vessel? You're a slow one, aren't you? Madara said, smirking, yes, I found this body years ago near my hideout. A young Uchiha child left in a coma. Of course, I had some help with the mind transfer. Kakashi clenched his hands. You're using my old friend's body for your benefit? His features hardened, his Sharingan flared to life, someone who spread nothing but positivity, someone who wanted to become Hokage, his teeth clenched behind his mask. You're using his body and his image and bastardizing everything he stood for. Naruto looked back at his sensei. One who was showing a new side he's never witnessed before, Kakashi-sensei. Never in my life have I ever wanted to defeat someone as badly as I do now, Kakashi said. He looked over to Naruto. Naruto, let's finish him. Madara didn't like the way that Kakashi was looking at him. He had this certain fire in his gaze that just made him angry. He didn't know why, but he knew that he needed to get more serious as well. The battle between Naruto and Madara continued with Konan being a good support to Naruto who needed all of the help he could get. Kakashi used Kamui once or twice against Madara, but it seemed to not do much as he just either ignored it or cancelled it out with his phasing. Guy felt useless, but only because he was waiting to be used or for an opening. Yamato would use his wood jutsu against Madara to try and capture him, but he would easily evade it or phase through the wood with his jutsu. Konan eyed Madara studiously as she watched his jutsu that he kept using over and over again. There was something about the way that he was using it that was giving her something that she knew, but she just didn't know what it was. Her mind kept thinking back on the times that he used those moves against her and how they sucked up all of her papers in a swirling fury. It was the time she first attempted to end Madara's life. She barely escaped with her life too in that moment, but she was always watching. She noticed something. It was slowly starting to set in. Suddenly, it hit her. Her eyes widened in amazement as she glanced between Madara and Kakashi. She felt so dumb. Why didn't she think of this earlier? Konan flew in a frenzy of paper over to Kakashi, who was barely hanging on, but still able to fight. His regular eye watched her frantic movement. Curious to her coming his way, he said, do you have another plan? Actually, Konan started with a mischievous grin, I do. Wasting no time, Konan created a paper clone that flew towards Naruto as quickly as it could. While the clone flew off, Konan began, both of you have the same jutsu. Your Kamui could be useful in landing a successful and devastating attack on Madara. It's just a theory, but I realize that you are using the same eyes. It's possible that you're using the same dimensional shift and in close proximity. If that's the case, then we could land an attack on him when he phases to this other plane that he keeps sending his body to. Kakashi looked down in thought, but was highly interested in this new plan that was made. He wasn't that far off from thinking something like this himself. Okay, I would like to try it, but I do not currently have enough chakra to support another Kamui attack, at least not for the next 15 minutes. Not to worry, Konan mentioned while watching the fight between Naruto and Madara and watching her clone get closer to them, I'm already a step ahead. Madara won't know what hit him. Naruto was busy trying to at least land an attack on the man in front of him, but nothing was working. Every time he tried to use a Rasengan or tried to use Taijutsu against him, he would either evade or use his transparency to avoid it. It didn't help that he kept grabbing at Naruto at any chance he got. Naruto definitely didn't want him touching anywhere on his body. Naruto. Naruto looked behind him and saw Konan rapidly approaching. Once she got closer, she whispered something to him, never taking her eyes off of Madara. Naruto didn't know what to do with the information, but he smiled knowing the gist of what to do. His hand signs went up again and he created more clones. Madara rolled his eyes at the constant clone bother that he always had. He knew that there was some plan that was being made, but he didn't know what exactly they were doing. Madara saw as all of the clones ran to him and tried to all surround him. They developed a man-made wall and ran towards Madara at full speed. Suddenly, more clones came forward with Rasengan in their hands and tried once again to attack Madara with them. Konan waited for Naruto as he got closer to Madara with his clones. Suddenly, Kakashi felt a strong pulse of power surge through his body. A chakra cloak erupted from his body and surprised him. "So, this is what you meant by thinking one step ahead." Konan didn't say anything as she watched the fight that was going on ahead of her. Without thinking, she created a paper clone that made an exact copy of her. That clone waited patiently as the barrage started pummeling upon Madara and his phasing started. They watched intensely, observing every moment that Madara phased through attacks. "Now! Kamui!" Kakashi shouted as his Sharingan spun into a Mangekyo. Konan's clone got sucked into the vortex, quickly disappearing from their world that they were in. Suddenly, Madara exploded from his position, knocking him backwards and towards the ground in a deathly slam. He rolled a few times before readjusting himself. Blood seemed to pour from his mouth as he clenched his red-soaked teeth at the other ninja before him. "I see. So, you know of my secret." "It wasn't hard," Konan replied stoically. "Use something again and again and eventually, someone will know how you do it." Madara looked to his right arm, which was once again lost from the explosion that happened. He didn't expect to be caught in his other dimension. This made teleportation harder to deal with. He couldn't phase anymore, because if he did, they would just use Kakashi again and cause another explosion to occur. He couldn't let that happen. "Looks like I'm going to have to use the 10 tails early." Madara swiftly ran over to the ghetto statue, surprising everyone that was fighting him. Konan widened her eyes as she got an idea of what he was doing. "Naruto!" Konan shouted in haste. Naruto got the hint and dashed towards Madara in an attempt to prevent him from reaching the statue. Without warning, a hand grips Naruto's arm, catching him by surprise before he gets a kick to the stomach and the wind knocked out of him. He flipped on the ground and stuck his landing while looking up. His teeth grit as someone he didn't want to see came to him with a big smirk plastered on his face. "Sasuke! Did you really think that Madara wouldn't have other plans to stop you?" Sasuke said with a chuckle, "I'm not going to let you interfere with Madara's plan. I will chase you, so don't run away now." Naruto clenched his fist as Sasuke ran to him on the offense and started attacking him. There were so many things that Naruto wanted to say to Sasuke, but apparently, those were going to have to wait. Sasuke seemed more focused on fighting him rather than talking. Konan saw as Sasuke attacked Naruto and kept him from going after Madara. "Shit. I didn't expect this. I'm going to have to move on ahead. Gai-san. Yamato-san. Follow me. I'll need your help. Kakashi can help Naruto if he needs to. We have to stop Madara from using the statue. We don't know what will happen if we let him use it." They both nodded their heads as they dashed towards the direction that Madara ran off to. Konan was determined to make sure that Madara doesn't execute his plan. Sweat began to bead from her head as she thought of the problems that could arise if she didn't get to it in time. Madara already had a head start. Konan watched as Madara ran through ninja and evaded them easily and killed some in the process as they ran to try and catch up to him. Konan fluttered forward with her paper and began to catch up. Madara noticed this and smirked at her insistence. He stopped rapidly, bringing his free hand to her and hitting her in the chest with an unknown pressure that sent her flying away from him and hitting a boulder before falling unconscious. Madara chuckled as he continued to dart through the ninja that seemed to fill his vision, but he was one step closer to the statue. He looked behind him and grunted in frustration as he saw both Yamato and Guy trailing behind him. He couldn't afford to be risky anymore. He needed to get to the statue as quickly as possible. While Naruto was fighting Sasuke, he felt a sudden urge to look over to Konan and saw her knocked unconscious against a boulder. "Konan-chan." He made a couple of clones that immediately left the area and went for Tsunade and Konan. He couldn't stop fighting as Sasuke kept up his barrage of attacks that left no room for Naruto to move forward or surprise him. Sasuke was fighting Naruto while he was weakened and Naruto didn't feel it was fair. Sasuke had a full supply of chakra and strength. "I really hope that Konan-chan is okay." Present time. Konan was sitting as Tsunade continued to heal her. She was currently going over her plans to defeat Madara and keep him from reaching whatever goals he's aspiring to achieve. She knew that waiting idly while he continued to head towards the statue would cause problems. It didn't help that she was already unconscious for a few minutes, which gave him even more time. She thought about what she did wrong. She knew better than to rush Madara like that while he was running. Even though he had one arm, Konan got too cocky and thought she had the upper hand. She didn't realize just how much of a power gap there was between her and him. Naruto was the only one able to keep up with him alone. She doubted that she could do anything without Naruto's or someone else's help. Even though she was planning how to approach Madara and how he functioned, she still couldn't grasp the new powers that he seemed to achieve while she was in Konoha. Suddenly, she felt an ominous feeling that made her sweat with anxiety. She knew something was starting to happen. She could feel it. She didn't know how, but she could feel something going horribly wrong. Her mind forced her shakily up to her feet. "What are you doing?" "I'm sorry, Tsunade-sama. I can't wait anymore. Something is happening and I need to be there. I have to stop it." Tsunade was shocked at the woman's sudden urge to head toward the fight. "If I don't heal you properly, then you could become a hindrance. You could die." Konan contemplated silently for a few moments before she spoke softly, "That may very well be so, but I can't have Madara follow through with his plan. Not when everyone is trying their best. Not when we're so close." Konan looked back to Tsunade with a sad smile. "Naruto-kun needs me. I have to help put a stop to this once and for all." Tsunade sighed as she stood up. She knew that the woman seemed to have her mind set on this and she couldn't change her mind. "Okay. I'll follow you back to the battlefield then. Just don't be reckless. Don't worry. I have a plan." Konan bit into her thumb and threw her palm into the ground, summoning jutsu. A large cloud of smoke billowed as a giant toad appeared in front of both of the women. Seeing the toad suddenly summoned by Konan, surprised Tsunade to no end. "Toad? You can summon toads?" Konan smiled with pants of breath as she nodded to Tsunade. "Yes, I've been to Mount Mayuboku. It's a nice place." "Hey, girlie." The large red toad with a cigar in his mouth yelled down to her, "I see that you're using us for the first time. Any reason that you need my help?" "Yes, I'm sorry for suddenly summoning you, but we need to quickly travel to that statue that you can see in the distance," Konan shouted. Gamakichi looked around before spotting something over a couple of hills. "Ah. I see it. Hop on both of you. I'll get us there in a jiffy." Both Konan and Tsunade looked at each other and got on the toad in haste before it hopped off with great speed. Its jumps were far faster than what they could do by foot. Tsunade was even more impressed as she watched the woman that was before her. She didn't know what to think, but she knew that Naruto saw something in her after all. Tsunade smiled in acceptance. Naruto made a good call. His luck was always better than mine anyway. Madara made it to the statue without much interference. The cage stood in surprise seeing Madara standing before the statue. They've been trying to destroy it for the past 20 minutes, but nothing they did affected it in the slightest. Madara summoned something that contained parts of the last two Baijuo and threw them into the mouth of the statue. The statue roared as it started its evolutionary change. Madara chuckled darkly to everyone that stood around him. They took precautionary steps back as the statue continued to wreak havoc on everyone's ears. They didn't know what it was doing, but they knew that it couldn't be good. They were afraid to move forward because they didn't know if it would explode or swipe at them the instant they get close to it. "What do we do?" Mei the Mizukage asked to the other cage who stood around her. They couldn't figure out how to deal with this giant idol and it didn't help that things got progressively worse once Madara got there. Gaara didn't know what to do. Having Madara here complicated things even more. Where is Naruto? That was a question that seemed to repeat. Madara was here, but Naruto was not. Was he defeated? Gaara doubted it. He must have been distracted by something else. Gaara began to sweat as he tried to decide what to do. Without Naruto here, I don't know how we are going to handle this situation. It seems we have been given a very difficult task. They could try to hit it harder, but no matter what they've done to it so far, they haven't even scratched it. They don't know why, but nothing they tried worked. A ran his lightning through the statue to try and break through with his speed and cutting ability, but his hand got stuck while trying to push through. The skin of the Geto Mazu was very tough. Suddenly, Yamato came to everyone's aid as he tried to summon large wood structures. He created wooden beams to contain the thing that was turning into something dangerous. The wood pushed the thing, but it didn't want to budge. It actually was bowing outwards. He held on for dear life, but the statue was so strong that the beams cracked and broke in many places. He ran out of options as well. "Everyone get out of the way." Everyone turned to see Tsunade and Konan running towards the statue. A giant toad followed behind them as they took stances. "Mr. Toad. Could you please destroy this statue that's shouting?" "It's Gamakichi." The toad told her, "Sure, let me see if I can do something about it." The toad swiped against the statue, but the sword barely made a dent. It stopped dead in its tracks in the skin of the statue. What the? That's some strong stuff. He pulled his sword out and sheathed it again. I'm sorry girlie, but that statue is pretty much unbreakable. I can't seem to dig into it at all. Okay, I'm sorry for wasting your time. Thank you for your help. You can go now. Konan, shocked at the strength of the statue, quickly thought another plan while the toad disappeared in a puff of smoke. She knew that this plan was going to drain her chakra, but she had to try something different and they didn't have a lot of time to handle this. Everyone. Get back. I'm going to try something else. Everyone ran backwards in an effort to get away from it as Konan began to flutter her paper. Paper erupted from her body in every direction. Thousands turned into millions and millions turned into billions as the papers fluttered and formed a cocoon dome that covered the statue, completely sealing it from the outside. The screams of the statue were muffled by the paper as Konan continued applying more papers to the jutsu. Are those? She's planning to blow that thing up. Get back, Tsunade said to everyone as they watched in amazement at the sheer amount of paper that continued to flow towards the statue. After a few minutes, Konan slowly began to stop supplying papers to the dome as the papers that fluttered around her began to take shape into her form again. She looked at the dome that she created and lowered her eyes in resentment. Madara was caught in the jutsu as well, so she knew that she had trapped him, at least temporarily. Madara, this was your undoing. You greatly underestimated everyone here, including me. You thought we were going to go down without a fight. Did you expect us all to lie down and die? Konan looked angrily at the dome. Meet version 2 of my 600 billion explosive tag jutsu. The last time you were in my jutsu, you survived by using the Izanagi. Now, you only have one Sharingan. Can you risk it this time? Konan didn't waste time as she touched a paper explosive. It started a chain eruption that began blowing the inside of the cocoon to smithereens. Roars from the statue were audible as the destruction continued to devastate whatever was inside. Everyone was watching as the explosions kept occurring. The statue stopped roaring after a few minutes into the destruction. Konan smiled as she watched the dome intensely for any strange behavior. The only downside to version 2 is that it only lasts 6 minutes compared to version 1, which was 10 minutes, but the explosions are more intense and more compact than the first version by stacking papers in sets of 2s. After another couple of minutes, the explosions stopped. The dome, created from paper, was on fire, but still standing from its attack. Konan was breathing heavily from the attack and felt weak from chakra loss. She fell to her knees as she tried to gain her bearings. That attack always drains her chakra and stamina. She knew it would be hard to move for the next few minutes. People began to cheer as they saw the dome on fire and the statue that was inside went quiet earlier. People were thanking Konan and giving her praise. Konan felt relieved after feeling the peace finally register in her head. She finally did it. Suddenly, there was a burning sensation on her stomach. Konan's eyes widened as she looked down. A long black rod ran through her stomach and out from her back. She looked up and noticed the rod came from the dome that she created. Coughs erupted from her lungs and her hands ran to her mouth as she tried to contain the cough to no avail. Shocked, Konan gazed upon the cocoon and saw Madara ripping himself free of the paper. His eyes stared darkly at Konan. He's still. Konan didn't have much time as Madara rushed her and grabbed her by the head. All of the other ninja were shocked as Konan was trying to fight for her life in his grasp. She couldn't break free and it was hard to talk from the coughing that erupted because of her stab wound. Madara had a different look. He was more gray and had a scaly appearance. He had 2 tendrils that seemed to form on his lower back and 1 horn was placed on his head. His Sharingan was closed, but the Rinnegan still stared intensely back at her. You shouldn't have done that. The rod that he was using turned sharp again and began to stab her many times over. Konan's pain was indescribable. Her teeth gnashed as she screamed from each stab that sliced through her stomach. Others' mouths opened agape at the vicious scene that played before them. They couldn't believe that someone would be so ruthless. After he felt satisfied, he dumped her body on the ground as he looked on to others that were staring at him with either fear or nervousness. He looked down again at Konan and grunted, I should have just killed you when I killed your parents. I should have realized how much of a nuisance you would have become. Too late to worry about things long past, I suppose. Konan's eyes widened as she heard his confession. Tears started to well in her eyes as she blinked to staunch the tears. The sudden revelation took her by surprise, but she couldn't do anything. Her limp body didn't move except for the heaving that she did while crying. Madara looked down at her pitiful state before he looked onwards to the other ninja that were preparing to fight him. His eyes darkened as he slowly spread his arms forward. One held the black staff. Shall we begin? Tlottlotlo. Naruto was in the middle of fighting Sasuke, when suddenly, a grave feeling hit his gut. This one actually scared him. He could feel Konan's life fading away. No. Sasuke smirked as he caught an idea of what happened. Well, looks like I did my job. You should have been better, Naruto. You couldn't save Sakura and now you can't even save that other woman. You're pathetic. Naruto grunted in frustration at the new information that he was being hit with. Sasuke laughed at his misfortune. Go ahead, Naruto. Go see her and see what you've done. Go see someone else that you couldn't save. I won't even stop you. I want you to be in agony. Maybe then you could actually understand only a fraction of my loss. Naruto dashed off in the direction that he felt Konan was located. His emotions were unstable. He knew that something bad happened. He knew that it had something to do with Madara, but he couldn't do anything until he could stop fighting with Sasuke. Now that Sasuke let him go, he charged at full speed. He went so fast that the air stung his eyes, but he couldn't stop. He had to see Konan and make sure she stays safe. She couldn't die. Not like this. Just as quickly as he was thinking these things, he ran upon the scene before him. Madara was wreaking havoc on the other ninja in the distance. There were many explosions going off and a lot of screaming, but Naruto could tell that this was becoming a bloodbath. And Naruto. He stopped once he saw the blue-haired angel laying on the ground in a crumpled-up mess. Naruto's heart broke as he walked over to her. His lip quivered when he saw her tiredly look at him. Her eyes lost all of the fire that they had before. They were hazed over and almost void of life. Her lips gushed blood from the sides. Her abdomen was a deepened shade of red. Many thoughts were rushing in Naruto's head as he picked her up gingerly. He took slow steps as he gazed down to her face. He needed to place her somewhere that wasn't out in the open. Naruto-kun. I'm sorry. Naruto teared up from her words alone. He was holding it in, but they were getting harder and harder to resist. Don't say anything now, Konan-chan. Naruto-kun. She started again, only for Naruto to have visible tear streaks running down his eyes. I realize now why I was kept alive. Everything. It's all so clear to me now. Naruto didn't want to hear these things, but he knew that Konan wanted to say something. Don't talk like you're dying, Konan-chan. I will find someone to heal you. Naruto-kun. Listen. To me, Konan said, getting his attention. I was here. So I could protect you. The prophetic one. I taught you everything I know about the Rinnegan. Konan's breaths were haggard, but she still continued. I gave you a power to defeat the darkness. After a few moments of silence while Naruto walked, Konan smiled. You changed me, Naruto-kun. You gave me a second chance to redeem myself. I was only glad to help you, Naruto-kun, because you really were the prophetic one after all. Naruto's eyes lowered in guilt and remorse. The shine that they seemed to have faded as he continued listening to her. Now I can follow my friends. Hopefully. But at least I can die knowing that I, Konan Senju, helped save the world. He looked down to her eyes as she looked back up to him. Her blood-stained hand slowly pressed against his chest. Her eyesight moved slowly to his chest. Konan chuckled faintly. What's so funny, Konan-chan? Naruto asked, saddened. You know. Maybe. If things were different.
I could
have. Konan got really quiet. Naruto's lip quivered again as he started to cry. His tears dripped upon Konan as he walked to a boulder that he found and placed her sitting up against it. His audible cry echoed as a cloud overhead started pouring light rain. His tears were drowned out by the rainfall as he looked downwards to the ground. He didn't know what to say. After all of this time, Konan, who he had grown attached to, slipped away and left him alone. His heart was hurting and he gripped it tightly as he thought about all of his memories with her. He recalled her annoyance at some of his shenanigans. He remembered when they ate together and how she would have conversations with him. He remembered how she started to laugh and joyously react to him. All of those things were now gone. His hand curled tightly into a fist. His nails dug into his palms, causing them to bleed. He knew what he had to do. He couldn't let it end this way. He rubbed his eyes and hardened his gaze. He leered towards his enemy in the distance. His feet increased in speed. His anger and sadness was hitting deep in his stomach, and there was nothing that could quell that rage. Konan didn't deserve this. Don't worry, Konan-chan. I promise, Naruto started as he arched his eyebrows. He steeled his resolve and wanted to work that much harder to defeat Madara. Your death won't be in vain. Madara laughed. He laughed more than he ever had in his life. A woman who thought she could outmaneuver and destroy him, only fell to her demise. She was cast away a second time and finally gone from the equation. She was a major thorn in his side and tried to destroy everything that he worked so hard to achieve. His work to create the infinite Tsukiyomi and cast everyone into a dream that would last forever, wasn't so far-fetched now that she was gone. He knew that he had Naruto to deal with, but with the added efforts of Sasuke now conforming to his beliefs, he didn't have to worry about Naruto as much as he thought he would. Even if Naruto were to eliminate Sasuke, Naruto would have run out of power by then and would make it easier for Madara to finish him off. Madara knew that he had this win in the bag. All he had to take care of were the cage. He had been killing ninja left and right and causing mayhem with each attack. The ninja were always falling hopeless beneath him as he ran through them and ended their lives. He almost felt sorry for them and their weakness. Almost. Tsunade watched as the countless ninja were being taken out. Her teeth grit as she watched Madara savagely destroy waves and waves of shinobi. No one could do anything to stop this mass of power and strength that seemed to have come from nowhere. She was reminded heavily of how he stabbed Konan and left her for dead. Her fists clenched tightly in her reminiscing. What could she do? She felt helpless. She wanted to run to Konan's aid and help her, but Madara had already begun to devastate the area and countless people. She felt sorry for Konan but ultimately, couldn't do anything at that moment to heal her. She needed to hold on to whatever chakra she had left, which wasn't enough as it was. Where is Naruto? Good question. Tsunade looked up shocked at hearing Madara before her. She saw him off in the distance perched on top of a large rock. His lone eye scanned down below him intimidatingly. Her eyes scrunched in anger as he butted in on her train of thoughts. She knew better though. She had to remain calm. She needed to focus. Naruto is off dealing with another person at the moment, Madara said in disinterest, therefore, you and I will be fighting against each other. Actually, Madara gazed at each cage lazily, you all will attack me. I'll at least give you a fair shot. Gaara was frightened by the sheer power that Madara seemed to have acquired. He knew something was off about everything that was going on. He could feel it in his bones. Almost like a lost feeling that seemed to be magnetically pulling him subconsciously towards Madara. You absorbed the Baiju, haven't you? Yes, I did. I've come ever closer to what you would call a god than before. I'm untouchable now, but I'm going to give you a fighting chance. Madara didn't seem interested in the fight at all. I'm only biding time anyway until the tree that you see off in the distance blooms. Then. None of this will matter. Everyone looked in the direction that Madara motioned towards and saw a giant stalk that grew out of the cocoon that was slowly burning into cinders. Everyone suddenly got an idea in their heads. Before you get any crazy ideas, Madara said boredly, I'm not letting you near that tree. You'll have to get through me first. Tsunade and the others grunted in aggravation. They knew it wasn't going to be easy. He already seemed too fast for anyone to keep up with. Even A, who was known as one of the fastest people in the world, knew that he wouldn't be able to keep up with the speed that Madara now possesses. He could probably distract Madara, but that wouldn't really do much good since Madara seemed to know how A was going to attack. Tsunade looked downwards in thought before she smiled. She sighed a long sigh, so. I guess this is how we go down. Everyone else looked towards her in interest to her words. Madara gazed curiously. I never thought that there would have been a day where I could have fought alongside all of the cage here and every other shinobi village, side by side. As comrades, she looked towards the other cage and grinned fully determined, we may not win this, but I'm not going to go out without a fight. She cracked her knuckles as she fell into a stance. Her 100 healing seal burst forth throughout her body, I will make sure that I at least slow you down before Naruto gets here. He will be able to stop you. Madara grinned as he watched the woman prepare to fight him, so you think that boy will save you all? He can't even save his own teammates. He is a failure and I will see to it that he realizes that. Madara's tone shifted ominously, he will lose. Everyone looked at each other in concern and uncertainty before they gulped and smiled. They knew themselves that this war was about to be over. They could feel it in their bones. Whether they win or lose, it didn't matter. They were going to give it all that they got. The world was depending on them. A loud crash erupted as a new person arrived to the scene. Their golden cloaked form shined brightly against the darkened night that they were bearing witness to. Clouds of dust kicked up around them as they shielded their eyes. Everyone gasped as they saw the arrival of the Kyuubi container. Naruto, Tsunade shouted surprised. She didn't think that he would have come by so quickly, but here he stood before her. Suddenly, she felt like things were going to be all right. "Hey, Granny," Naruto said straightforward without ever leaving his eyesight from the man in front of him, "it looks like I came just in time." "Whether you come now or later, doesn't matter," Madara stated matter-of-factly, "you will lose this fight." Naruto's face slowly contorted into a rage-filled expression. There were so many things he wanted to say. They all rushed to his head, but he kept his cool, even if his face didn't show it. Madara noticed the look on his face and smiled devilishly. "Oh, I see that you've noticed my handiwork. Unfortunately, Konan won't be moving for quite some time. She's finally gone from this world. This is all thanks to you." Naruto looked towards the man, but didn't say anything. The cool that he had was slowly melting away. Konan attempted to change her fate and make a difference in this war. Nothing that she did changed anything. She still died by my hands, and now you're closer to me. Madara shifted his eyes around the enemies around him before he continued. "I will capture you and add you to my collection. Now that you're here, you'll have no choice but to submit to me. Either by choice or by force. Don't talk about Konan that way." Madara halted his talk before he smiled, realizing something. "I guess you never really understood why I have such a hatred towards the Senju. We Uchiha have always hated the Senju. We attempted to work together to achieve a peace back in the day. But that peace was always fated to be short-lived." Naruto looked onwards in anger as Madara continued his rant. Every word that Madara said trickled more and more anger into Naruto. "Once the Senju were wiped out, I had to find the outliers. There were others that left the leaf or left before the leaf was formed. Who knew that one day, I would come across another Senju family in Ame of all places?" Madara smiled as he kept talking. "They had a little girl who didn't understand what it meant to be a Senju and knew nothing about the war between us. That's why I had Zetsu pose as Leaf Ninja and I killed her family." Naruto, shocked at this sudden revelation, looked downwards in horror. Madara killed Konan's family and turned her into an orphan. She had to walk the wet roads alone and try to fend for herself. That thought angered Naruto greatly. "You made Konan an orphan just for your sickening plans? Now you're getting it," Madara stated with sarcasm. "I used her to make her form the Akatsuki with Nagato and Yahiko. I knew that with an Uzumaki child and a Senju child who both had hate towards the Leaf Village would be a perfect poetic justice to the Leaf Village that I hated with a passion. Isn't it ironic, having two of the Leaf's most trustworthy and valuable clans going against everything the Leaf stood for?" Tsunade stood shocked at hearing this new information that sprung up in front of her. Out of everything that she heard, Konan's relation to the Leaf was more substantial. Konan as a Senju? She thought about everything that she heard about Konan and thought back on what just happened to her. Konan was another Senju and worked hard to turn around everything that has happened in this fourth war. She was a family member that she never knew about. Her whole world was flipped upside down at this sudden news. It made her regret that much more about Konan and how she left her there. Her eyes teared up. "Naruto, I'd like to go heal Konan." "Is she?" "Konan isn't here anymore," Naruto said to her, slightly choking on his words. "It's too late." Tsunade frowned deeply in disgrace at herself. What did she do? Another family member that she could have connected with was gone. There was nothing that she could do to forgive herself for leaving her for dead. "It's too late to have regrets," Madara said as he prepared himself. "Time will cruelly keep moving forward. You can't change what's already been done. Just accept your fate." Naruto, angered by Madara's statements, chimed in. "You know, I remember someone who told me about fate. He told me that I couldn't change destiny. That I will always remain that failure or loser that I was, but..." Naruto looked towards the enemy ninja. "Look at me now. I've never believed in fate, destiny, or whatever else you call it." Naruto chuckled softly while he reminisced. "Konan always called me the prophetic one. The one who would change the world and make a difference in everything." Naruto pointed to his chest and looked at Madara with resolve. "I don't believe I'm a child of prophecy. I'm just Naruto. But I do believe in my master's will. I come from a will that has been passed down to me from my master, Jiraiya." Naruto pressed his thumb harder against his chest. "I'm the last one. The last person to carry on my master's will and will find that answer to peace that he searched his entire life for. Konan's death will not be in vain. Her desire for peace will live on in me as I finally defeat you. Madara looked onwards with a frown. It looks like he definitely isn't going to quit by choice. I'm going to have to put him in his place. I'm going to beat you, Madara. You've been plotting and scheming for far too long. This is our time. You have already outlived yours. We are the future generation. You shouldn't look down on us. If that's what you think, then come at me, boy. I will show you what true power is. Naruto rushed towards Madara in unparalleled speed. You'll pay for everything that you caused. I'll make sure of it. Tlottlotlo. Conan's eyes opened blearily to a clear blue sky that seemed to stretch for miles. Blades of dark green grass tickled her palms as she breathed in a breath of air that seemed more fresh than the blood-stained atmosphere that she was currently fighting in. She sat up off of the ground and rubbed her eyes as she tried to gain her bearings. Her thoughts immediately came crashing down upon her as she remembered what she was doing. She was fighting a war. She was fighting for everyone's sakes against the evil Madara. What happened? I died. Her hands shot up to her face in frustration. She had to accept it now. She is dead. She knew she was dead and her thoughts slammed hard into her chest, knocking the wind from her sails and from her lungs. Her breathing contorted as she gripped the middle of her vest in a fervent attempt to stop the tears that were starting to pour from her eyes, but she couldn't hold it. How could she have been so dumb? She let her guard down against Madara again and caused another mistake to occur. All of her plans that she made went out the window as she realized the problems. Damn that bastard. She leaned over into the ground, banging her fist against the grass. Damn. Damn. Damn you. It's all your fault. Her tears escaped as she finally let go the frustration that her arch-nemesis created. You created this entire mess and caused everyone so much pain. You killed my parents, you fucker. Her teeth grit as she tried to get rid of the torture that she felt, but it was eating her up inside. Her head rested against the ground as her hair splayed across the grass. She heaved into the ground and choked on her breaths. It broke her up inside, being reminded of everything that happened and knowing that the entire thing was caused by one man with a plan to plunge the world into chaos just so he could envision a world with true peace. Her tears continued to spill forth as she let everything out. Sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Naruto. I really hope you can continue on without me. I failed you. Hey, why are you so down? Her eyes widened as she sat up. It was a voice she hadn't heard in a long while. She turned her head and saw a familiar face that seemed to have never aged a day. Jiraiya-sama? Hey there, kiddo, he said while walking towards her. A gentle smile was placed on his face. It's been a while since I last saw you, but you're just as beautiful as you were then. Her hands wiped against her tear-stricken face to try and remove the stains. She was too shocked to speak as tears threatened to burst through. Hey. Easy on the waterworks, Jiraiya said while throwing his hands out. You're going to make me look like a bad guy here. She ignored the man's statements and ran to him to give him a bone-crushing hug. So many emotions were spilling forth as she tried to quell her sadness and despair from seeing her dead mentor once again, but it couldn't be stopped. Once the world and all of the conflict that came with it were wiped away as she stood there in purgatory with her old sensei, she couldn't help but feel a need to let go of her past and run to her sensei to find that old feeling of family again. Jiraiya, while surprised, embraced her back fully as she sobbed into his chest. Hey, it's okay. Everything is okay. After another minute or two, Konan broke off of Jiraiya and apologized to him for the affectionate contact. He merely brushed it off. He knew the way Konan felt about him without even having to say anything. I bet you're wondering why I'm here, he said, knowing that she was curious for this sudden contact with him. She merely nodded her head as he continued, well, there's no easy way to say it except that you died. You're in the afterlife. Or rather, a purgatory of sorts. I don't really get it either, but that's just how it is. She looked down quietly as she evaluated her situation. I'm also here, he started again after noticing her distress, to guide you properly to make sure you safely make it. Noticing a question starting to form on her tongue, Jiraiya continued, although, you probably expected your parents, he waved his hand, sorry, but I specifically asked them to let me meet you alone. Well, maybe not entirely alone. What? Konan asked confused. Grass crunched against the ground as another man walked up to the both of them. His hair was a dark shade of red and Konan had to do a double take to see who was coming up to her. He wore a black cloak that had no more Akatsuki clouds and he looked younger than he did when he was alive. Nice to see you again, Konan. Nagato, Konan said with shocked sadness. His smile stretched from ear to ear as he walked closer to them. I'm happy to see you again, although, I wish it were under better circumstances. His smile faltered as he continued, how has the war been? Oh, that's right, Jiraiya added as he brought his hand to his chin. Nagato briefed me on this war that you guys are currently fighting. It must be pretty tough. Who would have thought that one man would have this much power? He smiled as he looked back over to Konan. I'm impressed that the Shinobi Alliance was formed. Of course, the world would need a common enemy to put aside their differences. It looks like peace isn't that far away after all. Nagato nodded. Jiraiya-sama is right. The war seems to be the key factor to helping prevent shinobi wars for the foreseeable future, possibly longer. Konan threw her eyesight to the ground as she clenched her fist lightly. I don't know if Naruto-kun can do it on his own. This war. The enemies are very strong. Her hands trembled as she recalled the events from before her death. Since I've died, Naruto-kun has to fight 2 enemies on his own and it's all my fault. Nagato and Jiraiya looked at each other before Nagato spoke. You really care for him, don't you? Konan shot her gaze to him immediately after that comment. It's not like that. Nagato sighed as he stared into her eyes. We've been friends for a long time. Did you not think I noticed when you started showing feelings for Yahiko? He watched as she darted her eyes around, avoiding his own. You helped with that too? Nagato softly laughed. Of course. Why did you think I wasn't around often when you guys were together? I even gave you both reasons to do things together at times. Konan lightly blushed as she recalled the events she had with Yahiko. Now knowing that Nagato had something to do with all of that time they conveniently spent together, she felt embarrassed over this new information. Is that right? Jiraiya guffawed loudly as he slapped Nagato's back. Even though you were so quiet back then, look at you. Good job. Nagato winced at the sudden slap. Thanks, Jiraiya-sama. But, I don't have feelings for Naruto-kun like you hope them to be. It's just a friendship. Nothing more, Konan stuttered. A friendship that you so purposefully forced to keep the status quo. Nagato sighed again. I know that you like him. You may even love him. I've seen it just from the interactions alone. You may be in denial, but I can see the way you look at him. Surprisingly, you wear your emotions on your sleeve a lot more these days than before. You don't understand, Konan shouted as she turned to them with clenched fists. Can you honestly say that you would be okay with crossing the line? Do you even know what kind of torture that is? Konan turned her sight to the right. You have no clue what type of thoughts and ideas cloud my head. I've been thinking about this for so long, but I can't commit to something like that. It just isn't right. Look, Jiraiya mentioned, trying to butt in on the conversation, I can honestly vouch for the brat. He may be loud and annoying sometimes, but that kid is a good kid with a good head on his shoulders. But that's the problem, Konan shouted to the both of them, making them flinch slightly. He is a kid. I'm many years older than him. Maybe if he was in his 20s or something, then I wouldn't mind as much, but he just turned 17. He's already 17? Jiraiya asked, surprised at this sudden news. Wow, time really flies in the afterlife. But anyway, Jiraiya shrugged. I say, so what? The kid is obviously 1 year away from being 18. Not really that far from an adult, to be honest. Plus, when he signed his life away at the Ninja Academy and became a ninja, he already became an adult to the eyes of the public. Even if you were to consider it wrong, it wouldn't really be wrong. Now you're just using technicalities, Konan brought up with aggravation. He could have a much more meaningful and fulfilling life with someone else besides me. Why bother with someone like me anyway? I wouldn't deserve him. So you admit that you like him then? Jiraiya asked, smirking. Konan looked over to Nagato and saw that he was smirking as well. Then, anger began to boil in the pit of her stomach. For some reason, something broke inside her. Maybe it was the smiles that they geared towards her. Maybe it was them playing her like a fool. Maybe it was the constant battle between them about her affection for a certain Uzumaki. Maybe it was the fact that she was in the afterlife and nothing really mattered anymore since she couldn't do anything about any of it. But she clenched her teeth. She's had enough. All right. Yes, okay? Her hand flew up to her forehead before she yelled again. These were things she needed to get off of her chest. You want to hear it, then you'll hear it. I like him. I can't believe I'm saying this, but I like him. I actually have fallen for him. As a matter of fact, I am in love with a 17-year-old boy. Her hands covered both of her eyes. I've thought about things that I wouldn't normally think about with him. I've had so many close, intimate moments with him that I'm actually afraid that I will move forward with my feelings and do something I might regret. Her hands rubbed against her arms as she continued, the times we've shared together have shown me something that I haven't had in a long time. There's a certain warmth that envelopes me whenever he's around me. I can't describe it. Nagato and Jiraiya looked to each other before she continued her rant. I've tried to play it off so often because I knew in my heart that no matter what I did, that I would never have that relationship with him. Even if I did, I felt in my heart that it wouldn't last long because he would always rather find someone younger than I. Just what is wrong with me? I can't believe I'm saying all of this. Konan. No, she shook her head and squeezed her eyes shut. I've given up on love a long time ago. Ever since Yahiko passed, I never wanted to fall in love again. The pain was unbearable the first time. Why should I put myself through that again? Konan. Look, she started again with her hand slowly loosening against her forehead. The exasperation was evident on her face. Naruto-kun has done so much for me. I'll give him that. While I admit that I love him, I just can't do it. It goes against everything I've learned. Why try something that I know will fail? She chuckled softly in defeat. Would you openly admit your love to someone half your age? How would that make you feel? It wouldn't matter because love is love. Konan's eyes widened as she turned around and noticed a new figure presenting himself to the group. A man stepped up with carrot-colored hair. His attire consisted of similar clothing to Nagato, reminiscent to the old days of Akatsuki. When I fell in love with you, I never cared about your age. All I ever cared about was you. Why Yahiko? Konan whispered as she walked over to her ex-lover. His face showed a warmth and determination that she used to see on his face all of the time. That same face of someone who showed concern for her. Konan, I know it's been a long time since I passed away in the ninja world and I'm still sorry. I also know because of that, you blocked your heart to keep yourself from feeling the pain after my death. Yahiko smiled as he kept talking. You have another man who's willing to love you for who you are. Why wouldn't you reciprocate his feelings? You too? Konan, feeling shocked at Yahiko's sudden questioning, responded quickly, I'm just too old for him, Yahiko. Even you should understand that. If he's of age, then why does it matter? Og. Konan threw her hands into the air. Why is everyone against my reasoning? Am I the only sane person here? We just want you to be happy, Nagato finally spoke up. When their eyes connected, she could see just how serious that response was. His face was stern. You're very special to us and we only want you to have a happy life. I'm sure Naruto wants the same for you as well. Konan threw her sight to the side with contempt. I don't want his pity. If Naruto is as Nagato has told me, then I honestly don't see anything wrong with this relationship, Yahiko said with a thoughtful expression. Konan, Nagato replied, are you really going to isolate yourself from him? Would you be happy by yourself? Konan fell into her thoughts. They spiraled as she tried to make sense of everything that was being said. She can't deny that she loves Naruto any longer. She knew that she fell in love with him. She always knew. But she was scared. She didn't want to hurt again. Her mind ran idly as she thought of scenarios in her head that showed her a different time and place where Naruto was an adult and had kids, but not with her. With another woman that was younger than her, and Konan would come to visit every once in a while to see how things were. Even though she could see that happening, her heart ached at the thought alone of Naruto ending up with someone else. It was an ache that penetrated her soul. Just because it goes against the grain, why try to prevent something that you know in your heart to be right? Nagato asked the silent woman, the only thing that is stopping you is your fear. The fear of eventually losing him to someone else once he gets bored of you. You're afraid of losing the last one that you ever gave a chance to hold dear. You're afraid of your plan failing once again. Konan's demeanor changed as the thought struck a nerve. She looked down to the grass deep in thought and finally realized that Nagato was indeed right. After all of this time, the pieces finally fell into place and it all started to make sense. Konan's sense of order and planning that she was so proud of had failed several times. Each time was with a loved one that she held dear. Maybe if she wouldn't have ran away and wasted time and just did what her parents told her, then they would still be alive to this day. Maybe if she didn't get caught by Hanzo and his men, then maybe Yahiko would still be alive to this day. Maybe if she tried to help Nagato instead of allowing him to go down the wrong path to change, then maybe he would also be alive to this day. Maybe if she didn't follow Nagato's plans so precisely and not let her sadness get to her head, then maybe Jiraiya would have also been alive. You're right, Konan said while her eyes started to tear up. Her expression was still intense as all things came to a head. I've been so afraid to try something new because I knew that it wouldn't work out. I was so confident that it wouldn't work. I was afraid of taking that chance and wanted to maintain what little order I had left with myself and my life. Even if it wasn't the right choice. But I couldn't change it because I knew that deep down that things need order. Otherwise, if I stepped out of line and did something different, I wouldn't know what lies beyond. And that scares me. Konan smiled as she teared up to her own realization. She rubbed her eyes to staunch the tears. I can't stop them. The group came to her and enveloped her into a hug. Smiles were plastered on everyone's faces. Looks like you finally figured it out, Jiraiya said while softly chuckling. This would be a great story to write for another one of my books. Too bad pen and paper inconveniently don't exist in the afterlife. Konan grinned genuinely as she looked up to him with her tear-covered eyes. You're still writing those books, huh? Some things never change. Not anymore, Jiraiya said while sighing, although, real life seems to be writing a better ending than I could have thought of. I mean, hey, Naruto and an ex-Akatsuki member forming a relationship? A love with an enemy? That would be a big seller. Oh, stop it, Konan giggled while gently bopping his chest with her fist. While the four were caught up in the moment with laughter and happiness, a thought dawned on Konan and sucked away whatever happiness she had before. Wait a minute. If I'm dead, none of this matters anyway. Why did we even talk about this? The group looked at each other before the three men nodded to one another. Right, Nagato said, we forgot to mention that you have one more visitor. That young child is correct. Konan turned around suddenly to the voice and noticed an older-looking man with a goatee floating behind her. He looked to be in his 70s, but had a presence that screamed godlike. Who are you? Konan asked, bewildered. His aura was calm for an older man and he seemed to be very wise, but his aura also seemed large and threatening. Almost like someone who could permanently delete you from the universe. It was a strange feeling. My name is Hagoromo Otsutsuki. People from your time tend to refer to me as the Sage of Six Paths. Sage of Six Paths? Konan yelled. Konan knew exactly who the Sage of Six Paths was. He was a historical figure who was someone that was revered to be a god that helped form everything that exists today. Konan didn't know what to do in this instance, so the only response was to leave her mouth slightly agape. That is correct. Do not be frightened. That's right, Konan, Jiraiya started back up, he has come to help you. Konan gazed upon the floating man as he watched her with peculiar eyes. Her curiosity got the better of her as she pondered, why do you need my help? You have a quick wit, Hagoromo mentioned, I've come to help you, but not without help of my own that requires your assistance. Quid pro quo, he stared intensely at Konan, I'm afraid Naruto doesn't have much time to live. What? A collective shout was heard, but Hagoromo continued, while Naruto Uzumaki is indeed strong, he doesn't have the power to fight these enemies alone. The rest of the shinobi world has fallen into chaos from a large army of white Zetsu and controlled forms of all of the Baijuo. The only ones still fighting currently are a handful of shinobi, your village's leaders, and Naruto Uzumaki. Konan looked conflicted as she tried to process this new information that the sage was telling her, but what can I do? I'm currently dead with no way to go back onto the battlefield. Unless you have a way to bring me back there? Naruto Uzumaki is unknowingly reviving you as we speak, Hagoromo told them all. Konan seemed to be startled by this. He is? Yes, it seems something that he is wearing is delivering pure chakra from Kurama into your system. We only have a few minutes before you are fully resuscitated. Something he is wearing, Konan murmured before she gasped, that chakra rod piercing. This is so we always know where the other is. I'll always be able to find you no matter what danger you're in. Don't worry. I'll protect you. I promise. It's a piercing that he put on during the war. He gave me one as well to replace my older lip piercing. Apparently, it has more use than we thought before. Indeed, Hagoromo said as he continued on, I've come to realize something while watching Naruto and other descendants of mine fight. That is why, I'm going to grant you something that you can use to help Naruto turn the tides of war in his favor. Konan looked confused as the sage extended his hand, come now, child. I must apply this power quickly for we do not have much time. Konan, with reluctance, walked over to the man knowing that time is of the essence. She couldn't afford to make another mistake, especially after everything that has been done so far. She wanted to help Naruto again and she knew that this time, she wasn't going to fail. This needed to be done. Hagoromo reached out with 2 fingers and gently pressed them against her forehead. After a moment, a surge of power seemed to spring forth, entering her soul and coursing throughout her body. A godly euphoria swept through her senses as Hagoromo continued to apply this power to Konan. She didn't know what it was, but she hoped that whatever the sage was giving to her would be beneficial to the fight that was about to take place when she comes back to life. After the transaction between her and Hagoromo, what was left was a faint red circle that seemed stamped directly in the middle of her forehead. She could feel a faint burning itch where the circle lay that seemed to not go away. What is this? When you awaken in the living plane, Hagoromo began, your powers will immediately take hold. Lest you be consumed by the power from the sudden change, I strongly advise to withstand the temptation of your newfound power to control your actions. The power is something similar to that of what my mother Kaguya herself had to endure. Although, her power was 1,000-fold of what you will experience when you awaken. Do not take it lightly. Konan nodded her head as she took in this new information. She was given a power that would want to control her, but she knew better than to let that happen. There were many things that she must do and she couldn't let something like this stop her now. I understand what I must do. Konan looked over to her group and saw them all smiling with newfound confidence. They could see the reaction on her face and knew that she knew what she was doing. Hey, Konan, Jiraiya said softly while smiling to her, you have a bright future ahead of you. I know that you'll do the right thing. You were always the smartest one of the group. Hey, I take offense to that, Yahiko yelled at his sensei as the older man laughed. Nagato started talking as the two others bickered. Hey, I know that we are all in the afterlife, but you do have one more person that we all support. Naruto-san will take care of you. It's what I always wanted anyway. But Nagato looked down shortly before he looked up again with a smile. We all want you to be happy. Whatever you might decide. We will support your decision. Nagato is right, Yahiko said as he stood in front of Konan. We all just want you to be happy. You deserve it. Just don't show up here again until you're old. I don't want to see you here too early. Live a long and healthy life. Yahiko, Konan whispered with a smile. Her eyes started tearing up again. Thank you all. I won't hold back. I know what I must do. The resolution was clear on her face. It was almost as if she had found peace that she had been searching for all of this time. Nothing more was said as Konan slowly faded away from spiritual existence. With Naruto. Naruto was trying his hardest against Madara, but it seemed with every punch, kick or swipe, he just easily evaded everything that he threw at him. Even his jutsu that he was well known for, like the Rasengan or even his new techniques with Baijuu bombs wasn't giving him enough leeway to keep the odds in his favor. He didn't realize just how strong Madara actually was. It was almost like he underestimated him, but he didn't want to let that get to him though. There were things that he needed to accomplish and that involved saving the world first from this crazy guy who decided to destroy the world with him. Naruto, I've already told you. You can't do anything to me, Madara said as he chuckled darkly. Why try to fight inevitability? Just give up. I will see to it that this world ends. And I've told you that I won't give up. How hard is that to understand? Naruto said with arched eyebrows and temporarily out of breath. I'm sick of your attempts to change me. I know I can make this world a better place without lying to myself with dreams. Ironically, you will also be the cause of the world being better in the process. Be proud. Naruto started gathering a black mass within his palm. A sphere that looked eerily similar to the Rasengan. He launched toward Madara with great speed. Madara, on the other hand, generated a sphere of his own. You're not very bright. I'll just cancel it out with my own like before. Madara darted towards Naruto with the Baijuu bomb sphere in his hand. His eyes were darkened as he leered at the boy that was homing in on him. Naruto smirked as he collided his Baijuu bomb with the opposite bomb. Madara didn't know, but Naruto changed his Baijuu bomb this time. Who knew that doing something simple like adding Senjutsu to it would make so much of a difference? A different reaction than his previous attempts happened as suddenly, a bright light erupted from the collision. A screeching emanated from the two balls hitting each other until a loud blast thundered through the area with a deafening roar. Madara's screams were overshadowed by the explosion, and the light that once blinded suddenly went dark and silent. After a few moments, Naruto looked around and took notice of his environment. He was standing somewhere in an empty void. He didn't know where he was and he couldn't hear or see anything. Hello? He shouted to no avail. His calls were falling on deaf ears as he made attempts to reach anyone. Is there anyone here? After hearing silence, he kept walking. He flared his golden chakra cloak hoping to see if anything was around, but he couldn't see much better than he could without the cloak. But, with his slight fear of being completely in the darkness, he left his cloak on, so he could at least see his own body. After walking for what felt like 10 minutes, he suddenly started hearing something. It sounded like a woman. Or it could have been a little girl. He didn't know, but he could hear it coming from what sounded like a direction to his left. He turned that way, hoping to find something that could help him get out of this black hell that he seemed to be in. I can't protect him. Why am I so weak? Naruto began to notice that he could finally hear what she was saying. He heard her crying and suddenly felt melancholic towards her. My only hope lies in Naruto now. He will bring that man to his end. I just know it. He is the true embodiment of light itself. She said my name, Naruto said, surprised. Looking closer, he gasped at what looked to be like Konan sitting up ahead. She was wearing her old Akatsuki robe and looked to be in great distress. He was a little suspicious, but he couldn't stop himself in wanting to reach out to her. How could he not? He got closer and his mouth moved as if he wanted to say something, but stopped as she got up. He noticed that she started to walk towards something. She looked as if she were searching for something up ahead of her. He followed behind to study the situation more. After all, this could all just be a trap set up by Madara. After following behind her for a few minutes, she started to run. He chased behind her in the attempt to keep up. She looked desperate and seemed to be pushing herself to reach whatever it was that she was trying to get to. Then, just as quickly as she started to run, her legs went weak and she collapsed on her knees. I knew it. I'm pathetic. I can't do anything right. Why is everything so difficult? Konan pounded her fist on the black surface she was sitting on and brought her knees to her shoulders and wrapped her arms around them, resting her head on her knees. I should just die alone. Hearing that, Naruto's heart broke for the woman. After hearing her spilling her emotions forth, his eyes started to moisten as well. He knew deep down that Konan was having trouble with herself. He always knew that there were some things that she never wanted to talk about with him. He saw her crying many times. Some of these times were when she would do it in front of him, others were times where she thought she was alone. He knew just how much of a difference that he had on her life. Life never seemed to be easy to her and he couldn't help but feel sympathy towards her and her reactions. I should help her. Even if this is a dream or if this is a trap, I should do something about this. It wouldn't be right to leave it alone. A couple of moments later, a figure placed his hand on her shoulder. Hey Konan, you shouldn't give up. Konan slowly raised her head up and revealed puffy eyes and cheeks. But it wasn't the Konan everyone now knew. This Konan took the form of her 12-year-old self in an oversized Akatsuki outfit. She looked up and widened her eyes at who she saw. And Naruto? The figure looked down at her with a wide but warm grin. He was a golden color with a golden cloak with bright golden flames that danced around his form. He also bore black tattoo-like designs on his torso that was unknown to Konan. Of course she recognized him entirely once she saw the whisker marks etched on his face. I know you want to just forget everything and I understand that, but if you do that, then you will never know what will be in store for you, he replied warmly. Konan looked at him for a moment before responding. His presence was astounding. She had never seen him like that before. His appearance was calming in a way as well because only a few moments ago she was so tired of it all, but now it was as if something was different. But Naruto-san, how am I supposed to have anything in store for me? I died, the blue-haired girl replied in question and looked like she was going to choke on tears again. Naruto placed his hand to his chin as if in thought. Yeah, I suppose you're right. You seem to be in a pretty bad situation. That's what I thought. Konan replied in anger. Even you don't even know how I will ever live again. I knew I should have never believed in you. You're just a big fake who never knew the realities of life. Naruto stood there silently as he took in all of her insults. He looked at her with an impassive face. I never knew you thought that about me. Konan cried to herself as she sat there. If you truly feel that way about me, then I guess I will just. No. Please stay here. I'm sorry, Naruto. I don't know what to do, she replied, making Naruto stop midway in his turnaround. Naruto walked over to her with his brightened aura following him. Konan-san, you are a strong woman. You already know what you must do. You knew the entire time. Konan looked back up at the now grinning Naruto and pondered momentarily. What did he mean she already knew? Unless I should help to defeat Madara. Naruto gave her a wider grin that turned into a foxy smile. Exactly, did you think I could kick his butt without you? You know everything about him. You know his moves, his weaknesses, and what he is planning. If you weren't around, I don't think I could do it on my own. Besides, we're best friends now, aren't we? Konan thought about his statements. Friends? She thought of the alliance as nothing more than a bond of countries, not a friendship with Naruto. Could they really be friends? She smiled at the thought. Another friend. Now, Naruto started as he held out his hand. Are you going to mope around or are you going to help me give this guy the ass kicking that he deserved a long time ago? That statement took Konan aback for a moment before she broke out into the warmest smile she ever had in a while. Sure, Naruto-kun, let's do it. She grabbed his hand as he lifted her up to her feet. Naruto made a mad dash towards the light while Konan ran side by side with him. The further they ran, the closer the light was coming. Konan slowly changed to her adult self with each step she took as they slowly picked up their pace by moving faster and faster. The light was looming ever closer as Naruto looked over to her and responded with a determined smile, "Don't worry, Konan-chan. I will help you every step of the way. We will do this together. I promise." Konan returned the smile and a light nod at her friend as they gained even more speed that was fast enough to break the sound barrier. Suddenly they came to the giant light as it encased both of them and consumed their masses. Chapter 28, The Final Fight. The scenery changed around Naruto in what could be described as a transcendence of some sort. Coming from that black void with Konan, teleported him to another place that he had never seen before. What turned from a bright white light, evolved into a milky pearlescent void that amazed him. "What are you doing here, brat?" Naruto turned to his right and saw the Nine Tails looking down to him in curiosity. Kurama? "Hey, Kurama, is this your human?" Naruto, shocked again, turned behind him and saw another Baijuu that was standing before him. Actually, there were many that were positioned around him. 9 different Baijuu in total. Actually, I was the one that summoned Naruto here. All of the Baijuu suddenly reeled back in surprise as they witnessed an older man with a goatee suddenly approach them all and head to the center, closer to Naruto. Naruto gazed at the other man in uncertainty. He had never seen this man before, and just for the added fact of having him suddenly show up in this alternate plane with all of the Baijuu, had him interested in what was happening. "Who are you, old man?" Naruto asked calmly. He already knew that there was something different about the old man that was in front of him. He could feel some kind of godly power coming from him and instinctively held back. He didn't know why, but even he felt nervous at this man's sudden entrance. "Naruto. Have some respect. This is the Sage of Six Paths, Hagoromo Otsutsuki." "Sage of Six Paths?" Naruto replied questioningly. "You mean, he's like a super Gramps then?" "You could call me that if you wish, although, it's more irrelevant than the information that I'm going to bestow upon you," the sage replied stoically. "I've been watching you and your world over the years as I traverse through space and time. The change of the world has been a massive one that has developed from a peaceful time to a more civil, but conflicting time." Naruto was following more closely than usual since he developed his Rinnegan. Surprisingly enough, he wasn't asking as many questions this time. Your world has gained the use of chakra and through several centuries, has created an evil in itself that hinders the progress of prosperity. Most of this is my fault, unfortunately, since I favored one of my sons more than the other. Indra and Ashura were my 2 sons that I cherished, but sadly have chosen separate paths. Naruto looked down in thought as a reminder that Sasuke and himself also have chosen separate paths. He already knew that Sasuke didn't want to be anywhere near Naruto, but Naruto heavily insisted over the years to bring Sasuke back, even if it meant to kill him. Those thoughts hit hard, but they hit nonetheless, and it caused a tension in his chest. "Naruto Uzumaki," the sage said as Naruto looked back up to him, "with everything that has happened over the years, I must apologize for everything. I didn't realize that things would escalate to such extremities as they have." The sage looked down in thought temporarily. There was a hint of something on his face, possibly remorse or regret, but Naruto couldn't discern what the old man was thinking. "Naruto Uzumaki, you have done well over the years you have been alive. I'm truly proud to have someone such as you carry on the legacy of my son Ashura. I've disturbed others in this world long enough, and I'm sure that Ashura is also growing weary of this eternal conflict." "What do you mean?" "I am saying that we must put an end to this eternal bloodshed between my 2 sons and finally lay this to rest. Therefore, I will bequeath to you new powers to ascertain dominance and ultimately conclude this cycle of animosity. With your current power, you will not win." "What?" Naruto asked with shock evident in his eyes. "But I'm already strong. How can I not defeat Madara?" "This Madara that you mentioned has received a lot of the Baiju's chakra through a haphazard 10 Tails creation and has gained a foothold in godlike power. With his current strength, you will have no chance of defeating him, for he is far too powerful." Naruto visibly sulked once he noticed that he was actually losing the fight against Madara. It seemed like he was evenly matched against him. He always had an inside feeling that he was going to lose, but he couldn't give up hope. He knew that he had to fight Madara and win. He couldn't let Konan die without a revenge of some sort. Okay, Super Gramps, Naruto said as he looked into the sage's eyes with determination. What should I do? Hagoromo was quiet for a few moments as he studied Naruto. I see. So, you've been given the Rinnegan by someone. This will make things easier. Come, Uzumaki Naruto, we do not have much time. I will be leaving this plane shortly. Naruto did as he was told and started walking towards the sage. Hagoromo then looked to all of the Baiju'u behind him who were obediently waiting for the sage to speak to them. He could see the wonder in their eyes, but he knew that he couldn't do much with them at the moment. A sad smile swept across his face quickly as he began to speak. It's been a long time. I'm sorry to have left you in this state, but mortality is something that cannot be stopped. We didn't think that we would see you again, although, Kurama looked over to Naruto in thought before he smirked, we found someone that is similar to you. Hagoromo quietly eyed the creatures before smiling softly at their response as they all nodded their heads. Even through their short interactions with Naruto over the course of the war, they could feel something different about the boy that was trying so desperately to save them. Then, there is something that you all must do. Hagoromo smiled sullenly at the beasts. Connect your chakra with Naruto. He will need your power to help end this charade and start a new chapter. The beasts looked at each other, questioning their creator's motives, but ultimately complied. They all reached an appendage out and the ones who had hands, balled them into fists. Naruto looked to all of the Baiju'u strangely before a thought struck him. He was reminded of the time that B and the Eight Tails both would always bump fists. Then everything all started to make sense. He smiled genuinely as he looked on to the Baiju'u. He formed a fist as well and began to tap every single fist that was out. Naruto, syncing your power to the others is important. It makes sure that everyone has a connection and will never be separated. I used to be that link when I was still alive, but since I have passed away and there hasn't been another, I believe it is time for you to carry on my position. Hagoromo reached his hands out. There are 2 more powers that I would like to give to you. Once I give you these powers, I will have to leave this plane for I will not have enough spiritual energy to maintain my form. Kurama quietly thought about his creator's motives. He knew that he never truly understood his creator, but he always knew that there were things that Hagoromo was always hiding. He couldn't really do anything about it though, because to go against his creator who gave him life would be absolutely ridiculous. He knew that the sage was planning something, but he couldn't determine just what he was thinking. The sage always seemed to have some idea of how the future will play out and Kurama knew that he was planning something to help that future come to fruition. Maybe it would be wise to carefully consider it and leave it alone for now. Naruto watched as Hagoromo placed 2 symbols on his hands, 1 in each palm. He also felt a sudden burning in his left eye that increased in intensity. The feeling left his eyes watering, but he could feel something new emerging from whatever was being done to him. He felt a new surge of power. It was something that he couldn't quite understand, but could just feel. It was a feeling of newfound confidence that he didn't otherwise have before. His eyes looked over to Hagoromo before he gazed down to his palms. A sun was etched on one hand and a moon was placed on the other. These powers, the sage started up, they will help you turn the tides of the fight in your favor. Naruto was in awe as he looked at his hands and back at Hagoromo. Thank you, Super Gramps. I don't know how to repay you. The sage threw his hand up into the air. Think nothing of it. It is something that I'm doing to correct a wrong that I have made many years ago. It was something I should have done while I was still alive. Naruto looked on in wonder before he smiled in determination. I'm ready. Hagoromo smiled as Naruto somehow disappeared from the plane with the Baiju'u. He looked to the other Baiju'u studiously before lowering his eyes in sadness. I'm sorry. The other Baiju'u were curious about his random apology but only shrugged it off. The Eight Tails being the most vocal, don't worry about it, father. We really like this new kid. I think everything will turn out all right now. Hagoromo's gaze faltered as he looked towards the ground. I really hope so. The world's future rests in your hands now, Naruto. Even you, Konan. You both will be the saviors of this world. I will make sure I right that wrong that I've made. Human life is such a volatile and fickle thing. Tlottlotlo. Naruto stood quietly as he came to back on the battlefield. He blinked his eyes slowly to regain his bearings. Large clouds of dust fogged the area from the explosion that happened previously between the 2 Baiju'u bombs that were released. He didn't know why, but he suddenly felt more powerful than he had before. His eyes traced his palms and saw each hand with a symbol placed upon them and smiled. That interaction that he had with the Baijuu and the Sage of Six Paths wasn't a dream. It was an actual thing that happened. He chuckled as he flexed his fingers. He suddenly felt more motivated to fight. Newfound strength seemed to take hold of him and he didn't think that he could lose anymore. Suddenly, he burst to life with his golden chakra form. It was replaced with a more refined cloak that lacked the tomoe on the collar. He also noticed similar-looking black spheres that were akin to Madara's spheres that floated behind him. Madara looked back towards Naruto and noticed Naruto's sudden change. His eyes darted to the spheres behind him and the sudden change in attire. His eyes lowered in discontent. Naruto seems to have done something. I don't know what it was, but it seems like he's gained more power. Madara stood watching the boy who was looking at himself in awe before he leered back towards Madara. Although, Naruto looked more confident than before. What happened to you? Madara asked curiously. It's not like you have any more power, so how did you acquire it? Naruto looked at Madara surprised before he laughed and stuck his tongue out, as if you would like to know. It doesn't matter because it will only help to defeat you. Madara was angered by Naruto's disrespect and only stanced himself again for battle. He already knew that the boy in front of him would just meet his demise. Why was he even trying so hard? Did Naruto even know anything about the real world that was around him? Suddenly, a sound erupted from behind Naruto. A bright light screamed towards Naruto and Madara in a blinding haze. Neither knew what was happening as they shielded their eyes towards the strange light that seemed to have come from nowhere. The light faded into a faint glow. Naruto brought his arm down and watched the new unknown figure. Naruto was at a loss as he witnessed someone who he thought was dead, before him and living. On top of that, he was also seeing something different about the woman that was floating before him. Konan-chan. The woman seemed ethereal. She was floating in the air, but that's not what was surprising. Her clothes seemed to change. She wore a white robe that was long in length. The sleeves of the robe were widened at the end. Her clothes accented red in several places. Her hair, that was originally shortened and a darkened shade of pale blue, now turned into hair that extended past her waistline. Her hair color was lightened to a color that was barely even considered anything remotely blue. It looked more white than anything. Protruding from her head were two horns that were colored darker shade of brown, but one was longer than the other. The red circle that was given to her by the Sage of Six Paths was darkened a deep tint of red. Two white spots were placed above her eyebrows. Her form was motionless, but she almost looked like she was in thought. Her arms seemed to wrap around herself. Two paper wings sprouted forth from her form and extended widely against her sides. Her figure glowed with a white aura that shined brighter than anything Naruto had ever seen. She almost looked, like an angel. Naruto was awed at her presence and almost teared up at her sudden arrival. He didn't know why she was alive, but he was glad that she was. Madara looked over to her and noticed that she was different than before. More surprising was that she was alive again. I thought I had killed her. Naruto must have done something without me realizing. No matter, I will take care of her just as I did before. He prepared to leave, but noticed that his body almost didn't want to comply. What? He looked at his hands and noticed that they were beginning to shake. I'm scared? He couldn't believe it. He didn't understand what was going on within his mind, but he needed it to cease. He sweated lightly and gulped to push down that feeling that was attacking him. There was simply no way he was scared now just because it seemed like they both acquired a new power. He would just take them down again. He was supposed to win, that's right. I'm going to be the one to win. These new powers of theirs won't do anything in the long run. I will defeat them both. Madara wasted no time to attack Naruto that was in front of him. He went and threw one of his black spheres towards Naruto that turned into a long rod. Naruto proceeded to deflect the rod with one of his spheres, surprising Madara only slightly before he pushed through to hit Naruto in full force. Madara didn't know what happened. He was trying to hit Naruto and suddenly, Konan came in between them quickly and knocked Madara backwards. He flew down into the ground with a powerful and quick boom that shattered the ground beneath him. Damn it. My Rinnegan couldn't see that attack quickly enough. How did she get so strong? He coughed up blood from his lungs as he stood back up. The anger that began to boil in his stomach was far outweighing the patience that he had to eliminate them both. This isn't good. Plotlo. Konan felt weightless. She couldn't quite understand what was happening to her. It was a feeling she couldn't explain. She didn't know why, but she felt more jubilant than ever. There was a sense of strength that she had never felt before coursing through her veins. She looked downwards and saw the robe that she was wearing. It looked like it was made with chakra, but the chakra was so compact that it also seemed like fabric. She couldn't explain any of this. What happened to me? She witnessed the strange glow that seemed to permeate her skin. It gave a warm contact. She could feel the energy in the air. She could feel the chakra in the wind. She could feel it all around her. Even if she couldn't see it, feeling it was enough to know that there was indeed something different. Her mind recalled to the time that Conan had in the afterlife. A thought struck her as she remembered the sage that came to her and gave her a new power that she never had before, the sage. This new power is what he gave me. Amazing. She stood in wonder to her newfound strength. She felt like she could do anything. A grin swept through her features. I can do anything. But I need more chakra. She started to laugh ominously at herself as she thought about it all. Her desire for power was something she was starting to become desperate for. Her eyes lowered as she witnessed two powers that came from her right. Smiling, she darted off towards these new powers. She needed more, so she was going to get more. She flew quickly to these new powers in front of her. It was almost as if she went there in the blink of an eye. The power that she received was far beyond what she ever thought she could achieve, and the best part was that there was more power waiting for her. Her eyes dashed to the weaker of the two as she suddenly stopped behind him. Her hands went to grab him, but she stopped midway. Memories resurfaced of everything about a blonde boy that infiltrated her heart. Her feelings burst forth and she couldn't hold them in. Her hands fell to her side before she wrapped them around herself. Naruto-kun. What was I doing? She was reminded of what the sage mentioned to her, do not take it lightly. Her hands gripped the robe that was covering her. She remembered. The sage told her that the power would try to rule her mind. This sudden power went to her head and she couldn't believe how easily her mind became swayed by the lust for power. She felt disappointed. She knew she was stronger than that. But she wasn't going to let that stop her now. Her mind recalled all of the events that happened before she came back to life. Her eyes hardened once she gazed upon Madara. She could see him about to attack. As soon as he darted for Naruto, her instincts took over and immediately got between them. She punched him with unparalleled speed in the face. He speared into the ground with a loud bang and surprised Naruto with her speed. That's amazing, Konan. Konan looked behind her and smiled. Her hair danced against the wind and seemed to also have a mind of its own sometimes. I think we can take him on now. I have a final plan, Naruto-kun. I hope you can keep up. Naruto grinned with slight tears in his eyes before he punched his palm. You bet. His eyes gazed over to the man that was currently on the ground. He could see that the attack hurt him and surprised him greatly. Madara was about to understand just what true strength was. Madara rushed forward again, but this time he aimed for Konan. As soon as he got close to her, however, her body shifted from its position. Surprised, Madara looked over and saw Konan rearing to punch again. He blocked this time and used his spheres to create a protective shell in front of him. Konan punched him again and sent him crashing into the ground again. How did she do that? Naruto smirked as he watched Madara get punched again. Konan had such raw strength from her attacks, that he couldn't believe it. Her punches seemed to be stronger than Sakura's and he didn't even think that was possible. How was she doing this? She looked different too. He would have to ask her later about it all. Naruto was surprised that Madara couldn't see that he was using his Rin Sharingan against him. The power that was given to him was becoming quite useful. With all of the chakra that Naruto had, he wouldn't be surprised if he could use it many times without growing tired. Madara was currently confused. She somehow went through his shield and hit him again. You're both different. This isn't right. How did you become so strong? Konan didn't say anything as she rushed towards him on the ground. Her paper rushed towards the foe and started to create a barrier around him. They exploded quickly, but Madara evaded the papers by the use of his spheres. He wasn't going to let her use that paper jutsu against him anymore. He already knew ways to defeat it. Naruto suddenly appeared behind Madara and tried to strike him with a Rasengan. His hand was pushed upwards. Madara quickly looked towards Konan and saw as she opened a portal and disappeared from sight. A portal? So, she can quickly move from one place to another. This might be a problem. Naruto got hit but disappeared in a puff of smoke. Naruto ran through the shadow clone smoke with another Rasengan, but Madara already saw this coming into play. He quickly evaded and threw Naruto's hand away from him. Madara widened his eyes as he quickly turned around and noticed Konan coming to latch onto him. He saw her portal that was already closing behind her. I couldn't even see her coming. Madara's fears created another shield to block him from being touched by Konan. He turned and dashed several feet away from them. He had to think about what he was going to do. Do you think I'm going to give you time? Surprised, Madara turned behind him again and saw Konan come through another portal. Her eyes held malice against the man that was in front of her. Madara turned around and prepared himself, but Konan stood still in preparation. You thought that you were going to be the one to win. You thought it was going to be so easy. I can see it in your eyes. You're afraid. Madara clenched his fists. I'm not afraid of anything. When I'm through with the both of you, there will be nothing left to this world. I will make sure of it. Konan's eyes burned into the man's figure. Her recollection of all of the damage he's done poured into her mind. She knew that Madara wasn't someone who could be reasoned with, but she decided to give it one shot. Madara, you're about to meet your end, but before I do, I will give you one chance. You can redeem yourself right here and right now. Revive everyone here and I'll spare you a slow and painful death. Madara frowned in distaste. I don't want redemption. I want to see this world disappear. No one will ever make me change my mind. Not even Naruto Uzumaki, who seemed to change everyone else's. Konan glanced at Naruto, who was behind Madara, and turned her sight back to her enemy. He didn't want to be saved. He didn't want any of that. He didn't want this world anymore. He didn't care if he took down every last human to do it. He knew that he was going to carry out his plan and end this entire hell that's been created by Kaguya. He knew that nothing that anyone would do could make a difference. It was all pointless. He knew it was. Konan saw this and sighed. There will always be people that you can't persuade. No matter how hard you tried, it would never work. Her eyesight lowered as she began to speak. Your reign of terror is coming to an end. Any last words? Madara smirked as he took on another stance. As a matter of fact, I do. Madara then rushed forward, charging toward Konan as quickly as he could. Die. Konan saw as he rushed forward with vigor. Everything slowed down as Madara came close. Konan's eyes lit up with anger. Her body twisted as she narrowly escaped his touch. Madara's face changed into shock as he tripped forward past Konan without warning and went head first into the dimensional portal that she created. With his head only inside of the portal, he tried to turn around, but his body didn't want to cooperate. What? I can't control my body. A thought suddenly struck him as he thought in anger. So, it's you? You wanted to have a last stand as a leaf shinobi, huh? He felt as two hands from different sides punched him hard in the back, forcing him all of the way inside of the portal. He fell from the sky into a hot desert below. His scream echoed into the vast desert as he took his plunge. Colliding with the sand, he spit up some dirt and got back up on his feet as quickly as he could. He saw as the portal began to close and desperately tried to reach the hole in the sky. He screamed with all of his might, I'm Madara Uchiha. You can't defeat me. I will bring your world to its end. You will not win. Konan. Once he got closer, he saw as Konan looked onto him with distaste, but satisfaction. Remember why you lost, Madara. Her last words would forever haunt him as he saw the portal close just before he got to it. It disappeared into nothingness and made Madara curse violently. Anger boiled inside as he vented dangerously to his surroundings. Konan. His screams of rage slowly dissipated as the portal closed to both Naruto and Konan's end. Naruto and Konan sighed a breath of relief as she looked over to Naruto in satisfaction. Her eyelids got heavy as she started changing back into her normal form. Hey! Naruto-kun. We did it. She fell over as she went unconscious in his arms. Konan. Are you all right? He looked onto her form, but saw as she was silently sleeping deeply within his arms. She was not waking up. With haste, Naruto created another shadow clone and made it dash off towards Tsunade with Konan in the clone's arms. He stood there quietly as he watched his clone run off with the body of his friend. He closed his eyes softly and breathed out a sigh. Sasuke. I know you're here. I've been waiting for you. Sasuke grinned smugly as he walked forward from behind a rock. So it seems like you've defeated Madara. Naruto didn't say anything as Sasuke continued. I know that woman did most of the work though. You must not be very strong. I guess we will see about that, bastard. Chapter 29, Aftermath. Hospital in Konohagakure. Konan opened her tired eyes to the ceilings of what looked to be a hospital. She could feel the sterile air hitting her nostrils and remembered that she's been here before. Back in the beginning when Naruto saved her from her impending fate and brought her back to Konoha to be treated. She was surprised herself that she was saved, but it did happen. She could feel her body hurting from soreness that seemed to permeate throughout. The war really felt like it beat the shit out of her. She also remembered how she had that ability that was given to her in the last stand that she helped make for Naruto to secure his victory. She moved her leg a little to try and get more comfortable, but this caused her to stifle a grunt of pain as she tried to adjust herself to the bed that she was laying on. Once she moved, she noticed there was a weight on her legs that didn't seem to want to go away. Looking down, she noticed Naruto laying and somewhat drooling on the covers that she had draped across her body. Looking at the boy laying on her waist and drooling peacefully, she could only assume that the war had finally ended and that they were back in Konoha. It seems her final push to help defeat Madara was a success. She smiled as she took in this new calm atmosphere. "It's finally over," she whispered as she looked over to the boy that was sleeping quietly on her. She brought her hand over to his hair and rubbed his scalp in a soothing manner. The feeling in her chest was exponentially warmer than ever before. There was a certain satisfaction in knowing that the war that had plagued them and the man that had orchestrated this entire charade were finally finished. Looking down to the boy that lay on her, she smiled with lowered eyelids as she took in his features. His hair that seemed to change color over the past few months was finally back to his bright blonde color. She didn't know why, but to be honest, she would rather have his original hair color anyway. There were so many things that needed to be said and so many questions. It was difficult to put everything in order in her head, but she needed to finally reveal what has been on her mind. Naruto-kun. She rocked his shoulder gently as to not excite him or anything. He began to stir as he cracked his eyes open to see who woke him up. After rubbing his eyes to try and get the sleep out, he looked up and saw Konan staring back at him warmly with a full-mouth smile. "Hello. Naruto-kun." "Konan-chan." Naruto couldn't believe it, as everything finally registered in his head. He went from shock to happy as tears began to form in his eyes. "You're awake. You're finally awake." He got up and went to her side and gave her a hug. Konan laughed as she hugged him back, but hissed slightly at the pain that emanated from her body. "Oh. Sorry," Naruto said as he moved backward, but Konan stopped him and kept him in the embrace. She only smiled as she kept rubbing his back. "Don't worry, Naruto-kun. I want your hug. I don't care if it hurts a little." Naruto smiled more as he continued to hug her. He couldn't believe it. She was finally awake after all of this time. He didn't know what to think. After another few moments they broke away. "Granny Tsunade said that you were in a coma. She said that the strange jutsu that you used exhausted your body and that your body shut down because of it. You were asleep for 3 days and we didn't know when you would wake up. But I'm awake now and that's all that matters," she said, smiling with closed eyes. "You're right," Naruto grinned as he looked down onto the sheets. Then a thought clicked. "Oh right. Here, some water. I know you must be thirsty." She watched as he picked up her glass and handed it to her. She took the water and drank it quickly, not even leaving a drop behind. She sighed as she finished and put the glass down. "She really needed that. My mouth was dry, but I'm glad that you gave that to me. Thank you." "Don't mention it," Naruto waved his hand. "I figured you'd be thirsty." Konan smiled as well before she stared down at her sheets. There was a lot swirling in her mind as she contemplated what to say. Her face took on a more pensive nature. "Naruto-kun. There's something I would like to say." Her hand gripped the bed sheet in a fidgeting manner. Her heart started to beat faster as she began to talk. "Over the period of time that we've been together, she gulped as she tried to reel in her emotions, but that was proving hard to do. What is it?" Naruto asked her. He was honestly curious about what she could be thinking so hard about. He was sure that the war had taken its toll on her and figured she wanted to talk about it. "Well, let's wait on that one," Konan said as she continued. "Why don't we start with how you defeated Sasuke?" Flashback. The fight between Naruto and Sasuke was short-lived. It didn't help that Sasuke used the Izanagi twice to try and escape bad deaths, but no matter what he tried, he never had a third eye to save him. Naruto had finally done it. Tears welled in his eyes as he looked at Sasuke's bewildered face. Naruto saw as Sasuke slumped on the ground. A large part of him was blown away by the Senjutsu-powered Rasengan that he created against him. The coughing that Sasuke did was fading as time passed. Blood escaped from his eyes and mouth and he shivered uncontrollably. With his eyes permanently gone through the use of Izanagi, Sasuke couldn't see Naruto and his attempts to fight Naruto were severely limited. As he laid there, he chuckled. "It was a melancholic one, say, Naruto." Naruto looked down to his fallen teammate and frowned. He never wanted Sasuke to go through any of this. He didn't want any of this. He waited for Sasuke to continue. Yeah? I hate you. Naruto's eyes lowered in sadness. I hate you too. Sasuke laughed softly. Idiot. You've always been a terrible liar. And you've always been a terrible friend. Naruto didn't laugh like Sasuke did. What could he say? Sasuke has always been terrible at this, and it only got worse once he left the village. Naruto could never forgive Sasuke for killing Sakura. What he did was indisputably horrendous. Sakura meant just about everything to Naruto. She was his friend for so long and they became so close. Sasuke took that all away. But why are you crying? Naruto was standing stiffly, wiping his eyes with his forearm. He couldn't stop the tears that flowed down his face. He knew that his friend was evil, but yet, there was something deep down that made him remember that Sasuke was just a friend that got lost along the way. I'm sorry. Sasuke turned his head away from the direction of the sound of Naruto's voice. The loss of will appeared in his voice. What do you have to be sorry for? He already knew. This was a path that he had chosen. He even saw his brother and talked to him again, only to fall into his same rhythm. He never really understood what his brother was doing or how he thought. Maybe if he listened to his brother more? There were many regrets that seemed to pile upon Sasuke as he laid there, but he couldn't put any of them into words. The light from his life was fading away and he could only sigh a long sigh. He just wanted to sleep. Naruto noticed that Sasuke stopped moving. This was hard on him, but he couldn't do anything about it. He had to make this happen. His eyes lost their luster and he just sat there beside Sasuke quietly. Sasuke dying left a bitter taste in his mouth. It didn't feel like a win. No matter what, it always felt like a loss. Sasuke chose his path. Naruto frowned as he looked back down to his clasped hands and twiddling thumbs. He already knew that, but it didn't make things any easier. He sat quietly as Konan kept talking. No matter what, Naruto-kun, you tried your best and worked hard at bringing him back. Her hand laid on top of his hands in a gentle manner. I would have never had the strength like yours to persevere so long to try and save someone. I was never that brave. Naruto looked over to her and smiled. His smile was genuine, but held sadness within it. But Konan, you watched over Nagato during his reign as pain. Weren't you always there for him? Konan looked away from him and turned to the window. Her eyes gazed at the sunlight that shined outside and showed the greenery that enveloped the village. She sighed. Nagato was a broken man. His mind was riddled with guilt about Yahiko passing away. It ate away at him and caused him to spiral into madness. Konan looked down to her blanket in remorse. I didn't do anything. I only watched him turn into the monster he became and I let it happen. I was afraid that he would shun me. I was afraid that he would think that I am turning against him. How could I, his last friend, do something like tell him that he's turning into a monster? Her eyes began to tear up. Naruto's mouth drew into a thin line as she kept speaking. I did what I had to, Naruto. I stayed with him and tried to protect him, even if his ideals weren't my own. I just wanted the madness to end. Konan wiped her eyes with her hands as she sniffled. These memories were a difficult topic to deal with and she was never one to talk about them. They were things that she wanted to keep locked away. But there was a boy that changed all of that, Konan continued as Naruto looked up to her in surprise. Naruto-kun. You did what I couldn't do. You came in and saved Nagato. You made him think of another way, that I've wanted to do for so long. To be honest, it hurt me that you could change him so easily as I stood by and did nothing. Her eyes kept focused on the blanket down below. I couldn't believe that such a simple-minded and naive boy could easily change Nagato's mind and open his heart again. But I didn't do anything. Yes, you did, Konan said louder than she wanted. You did something that I could only dream of doing and you made it look so easy. I felt like a failure. Konan, Naruto said as he gained her attention. She looked into his eyes and saw the seriousness embedded within them. You're not a failure. But I never achieved anything, Konan said loudly. I was always standing on the sidelines. I never took the initiative. I was always afraid, Naruto. You know, a failure never realizes their mistakes. They'll just keep blaming something or someone else or giving up. You did neither. Look at you now, Naruto said as he looked her in the eyes and put his hand on her leg. You've survived and realized your mistakes. The only thing you can do now is grow and learn from them, you know? Konan sat there and thought about what Naruto just said. His words were surprisingly well thought out, but he always seemed to have his way with words when it counted. She sighed and smiled lightly. I guess you're right. Naruto smiled as well once the conversation felt like it reached its end. After a few moments, Konan had to ask, Naruto, what happened after I went unconscious? Oh, Naruto said as he brought out his thinking pose. Of course she wouldn't know what happened because after he power spell that she had, she fell unconscious from the overwork of her body. He spoke, well, there was a lot going on. If it wasn't for your help, I probably wouldn't have made it. That strange power that you had really saved us. I didn't even know that you could do something like that. I couldn't. What? Naruto asked bewildered. Well, where did it come from then? Well, when I passed away, Konan said after thinking with her hand to her chin, I met a few people in the afterlife. They were helpful, but I met the Sage of Six Paths and he gave me this power that was reminiscent of his mother. What? Naruto asked in a craze. So, Super Gramps that you met in the afterlife gave you a power? I wondered how you got so strong. He was a nice man with an intimidating aura. He was gentle and talked about you in high regard. Why would he talk about me? Naruto asked. Konan pondered that as well. She didn't really know why and the sage never gave her a precise answer to why he needed her or why he knew Naruto. She figured that it went far beyond her comprehension, so she just smiled softly and used the excuse that she's always used, I think it's because you're the prophetic one. You've said that many times now, Naruto said with a defeated smile while looking down. And it's true. You saved the world, Naruto, and never gave up. Konan stared intensely at him. Everyone who believed in you saw their savior defeat the worst evil the shinobi world has ever seen. You're the world's hero. What else could you be? It's true that I saved the world, but not without your help, Naruto said while staring into her eyes with a fiery intensity. If you hadn't come back alive, I would have been dead. You did most of the work at the end. I was more of a helper than a savior. Nonsense, Naruto-kun. If you hadn't saved me, I wouldn't have been able to help you like I have, Konan said with a smile. Why do you talk down to yourself so much? Konan laughed lightly before looking down to her bed. I guess you caught me. But why do you do it? Naruto asked her seriously. You are very strong and helped so much in this war. You even changed my life too. I only did what I had to, Konan said while looking him in the eye. She almost looked away, but kept her focus. I was just a pillar to support your success. I wanted to watch you bloom into something that was beautiful and would last forever. Konan, Naruto said to her in awe at what she said. It was something beautiful to say, but it also hurt him. I hate that you think so low about yourself. Wait, Naruto-kun. Naruto stopped as he looked at her pensive stare. She seemed to want to say something. After fidgeting with her blanket again, she looked down to her blanket. Well, that's the way I used to be. Huh? Naruto asked curiously. The way you used to be? What do you mean? Konan smiled. I used to only want to be the pillar to support you, but... Her hand slowly went to her shirt. I've changed over the time we've spent together. It's scary how much of a change it's been, but... It's... not so bad. Konan looked different to Naruto at this moment. He noticed her soft nature that was slowly revealing itself to him. He had never seen her like this before. There were many times that Konan had confided in Naruto, but she has never been so open as she had now. When she initially arrived in Konoha, she was cold and didn't want much to do with him. It was difficult to find a comfortable topic without her getting upset. Why were things different now? Are you okay? Konan was surprised at that sudden question, but only lightly giggled at him. I'm better than I have ever been. Naruto noticed that she was motioning for him to sit down on the bed. He didn't really know what was going on but complied nonetheless. As he sat down, he looked back to her. Her eyes looked into his studiously. The look on her face was something Naruto had never seen before. Naruto-kun, Konan started softly, getting his immediate attention. When I first met you, I had no clue what you would become. But, once you swayed Nagato, I felt like there was a chance for this world to truly be saved. I saw it in you, Naruto continued listening with rapt attention. I figured that if anyone could save the world, then it would be you. I never realized just how right I was in that hope. Everyone has been fighting this war for so long. All of these nations were going at each other's throats. It was temporary. But you showed everyone the way. The right way. Konan looked as if she gulped lightly. Her throat must have still been parched from only drinking one glass. You persuaded ninja that believed you never had any chance. You defeated the one who orchestrated everything and almost caused the near extinction of all things living. I'm sure that everyone is looking onto you in admiration. Even I. Naruto wanted to retort, but Konan brought a finger to his lips to shush him. Once he stopped, she continued, Naruto, I owe you more than I can ever repay. You've saved my life twice and given me a new lease on life. I've even witnessed you accomplish the lifelong goal of my former teammates and even my old sensei. Konan slipped from underneath the covers, crawled towards him near the end of the bed. Konan? Naruto's eyes widened in surprise at Konan's sudden movement, but she brought her finger to her lips to silence him again. You've done so much for me, but you've never asked for anything in return. That's why. Konan grabbed his shoulders and forced him down onto the bed. Naruto's eyes widened at her sudden advance. He looked up to her and saw the look that she was giving him. Her eyelids lowered and a slight blush dusted her cheeks. The only thing I can offer is myself. My entirety. Naruto couldn't believe what he was hearing. But, Konan, didn't you turn me down? What happened? Konan smiled genuinely at him. The look on her face told him everything. I was fighting an internal battle, Naruto-kun. I was fighting against my feelings and never wanted to believe them. I was afraid of taking this chance and losing you. I was afraid that I was too old for you. I was afraid that you would find another woman and leave me. I was afraid of being alone. Konan straddled Naruto's waist as she looked down to him. Her eyes didn't betray her emotions that she was fighting. Naruto, I'm a 32-year-old woman who isn't getting any younger. I've already had both my lover and my best friend die in front of my eyes. I have no family, no friends, and I'm not in my home village of Ame anymore. If it weren't for you, I would have absolutely nothing. Her eyes looked away from him. I knew. I just knew that if I let my heart take control again and give in to something new, that it would be taken away from me, just like the others. I didn't want that. Tears began to fall as she sat there on top of him. Streaks rolled down her cheeks as she sniffed softly to try and stop them from rolling anymore. I couldn't do it again, Naruto. The pain was unbearable. Naruto was speechless. Konan was delivering some explosive truths and it was almost too much to take in. He had confessed to her before and she turned him down. He felt that she would never love him. He wanted to just move on from that and never worry about it again, but here she was. Confessing to him. His stomach burned with excitement. Butterflies were breaking free. But, Konan started again, breaking his concentration. I can't ignore my feelings any longer. Her eyes looked down to him and they started to tear up again. I should have embraced this feeling. I know. I know that I'm older. I know that it seems absurd that someone as old as I am could fall for someone like you, but I can't take it anymore because I love you. Naruto blushed deeply at Konan's confession. Konan was telling him something he never believed that he would hear. It brought flashbacks to times when he first met her, to times when she was helping to train him, to times when she confided in him, to times when she supported him. His mind raced as he tried to process it all, but failed at doing that and could only lay there stiffly. You love me? Yes, Konan said while looking down to him. Her eyes looked down to his chest. Without a doubt, I love you from the bottom of my heart. I tried denying these feelings, but her hands pressed against her chest. Her heart was racing, something kept pushing me towards you. It was as if something else is at work here. Her eyes gazed to the blanket, lost in thought. There were many times where she was catching herself looking at the boy in an unusual way. A way that felt forbidden. There were times when her heart clenched at the mere thought of trying something so outrageous. If it weren't for Jiraiya-sensei and the others, then I probably would have never taken the chance that I'm taking now. Her thoughts dwelled on something that Yahiko mentioned to her and it seemed to stick. Her lips curved upward at the memory of her comrade's insistence to start a relationship with Naruto. Years ago, I promised myself that I would never fall in love again after Yahiko passed away. I didn't want that pain again, but Konan leaned forward into Naruto. Her hair splayed on the sides of his face. The blue strands lightly tickled his skin. Her breath was hitting his face softly to every word she spoke and the distance between their faces closed itself with every syllable. Thanks to my unpredictable hero, it looks like I have no choice, but to break that promise after all. Naruto felt as Konan's lips pressed against his softly. Her lips were dry, but the feeling itself was electrical. He had never kissed anyone before, so he was nervous at this sudden advance, but Konan easily led him through the motion. Both were experiencing something refreshing that they never realized that they wanted until they started. Naruto was stiff as a board at the beginning, but he relaxed once she cupped his cheek. His eyes became drowsy at the warmth that seemed to permeate through him. What was slow, awkward, and mechanical, gradually became more comfortable as Konan pressed their kiss further. The blush on her face reddened considerably as a fire lit within her. There were many years of want and need that suddenly burst through as Konan deepened the kiss between them. She almost forgot what a real kiss was like against someone that she loved. Her stomach burned as she noticed the situation that she was experiencing. Naruto took it in stride as he tried his best not to mess up his first and greatest kiss he's ever received in his life. He could feel her press into him with her body. Her chest was pushing against his, and that idea in itself made his mind go blank. What was a simple kiss, immediately turned into a make-out session. He felt as Konan's tongue began to press against his teeth with each kiss, and he let her explore his mouth. Her tongue and his battled for dominance as the saliva wet their lips. Naruto's hand ran up to her side as they continued their deep and intimate exchange. After a few moments, Konan pulled up from Naruto's sweaty face as she looked at him in the eyes. His eyes were glazed over in pure joy, and she could see that he obviously wouldn't mind if they had done it more. She chuckled as she breathed a sigh. Naruto. Don't do that with just anyone. Naruto looked into her eyes and saw the radiance from her genuine reactions towards their interaction with each other. He looked right back into her beautiful and rich amber eyes and smiled. I know you don't. You know that I won't take advantage of you. I've been attracted to you for a while now. I would never want to hurt you because you've become such a good friend. One that I could call a best friend, you know? Konan smiled softly as she looked down to him. You've become dear to me too. I also consider you my best friend. Naruto smiled back to her as they stared at each other's eyes. There was a certain intensity that emanated from them as they both slowly went back to continuing where they left off. Ahem. Both Naruto and Konan looked at the source of the disturbance and saw Tsunade standing at the doorway. I'm sorry to interrupt, but this is a hospital. Could you please do that somewhere else? Oh, Konan quickly removed herself and blushed in embarrassment and shame. I'm sorry, Tsunade-sama. Naruto was almost annoyed at the sudden retraction, but complied nonetheless. Sorry, Granny. It's alright, Naruto, Tsunade said while walking over to the bed. She sat her clipboard down and proceeded to activate her mystical palm technique over Konan's body. Her hand stopped after a few moments. Well, it looks to me, since you were in a lip lock with Naruto, that you'll be just fine. I checked over any areas of concern and found that most of your injuries have started to heal nicely. Those stabs that you had against Madara were healed completely. It's almost as if you never had been stabbed at all. Konan smiled at the thought that she was entirely healthy. That was a nice turnaround from the earlier fights that she had a few days ago. Thank you for checking up on me, Tsunade-sama. Tsunade wrote on her clipboard before she smiled. Don't mention it. Plus, you don't have to worry about speaking so politely to me. I'd rather you call me Tsunade. We're family now, right? Konan's eyes widened at Tsunade's response, and she looked over to Naruto, who only chuckled. Madara spilled the beans to everyone while you weren't there. Sorry. Konan only sighed before she smiled lightly. Well, I guess I don't have to worry about hiding my name anymore since the wars are over. Plus, it's nice to have a new family member. That's what I think too, Tsunade said with a determined grin, but don't think that just because we are family that I will go easy on you if you hurt Naruto. I don't want him to get his heart broken. Konan returned her grin with one of her own. I don't think that will be an issue. I think we will be just fine with one another, isn't that right, Naruto? I think this is the start of a beautiful relationship, Granny, he said while giving Tsunade a thumbs up. I really like her, so I don't think we will have any issues. Konan said as she brought her finger up to her chin. Her eyes wandered the ceiling, tiled in thought. Although, I do believe that we are going to have to eat healthier from now on. That is one thing. Konan, not the ramen. Anything but that. Naruto pleaded as she continued to speak. Plus, there is the fact that since I'm officially living together with you, that we are going to have to redecorate and clean to keep an orderly house. Naruto groaned as he realized that he was going to have to clean more often than he wanted from now on too. Naruto, grow up. You have a nice lady as your new girlfriend. You need to put more effort into your house and hospitality skills. But Granny, I'd like to finally have a break. I helped save the world. You can have a break after you resign as Hokage. But that's gonna... Naruto stopped as he stared at Tsunade with wide eyes. What did you just say? Tsunade smiled affectionately at the boy. Sometimes it was nice relaying happy news for a change. You heard me, knucklehead. I've officially made you my successor. Therefore, I want you to start getting serious with everything from now on. In a couple of years, I will hand down my hat to you." Konan and Naruto looked at each other with surprise written on their faces. Was everything that she was saying true? Naruto started to tremble as he reached his hand out expectantly. "Are you telling the truth, Granny? This isn't a joke, right?" Tsunade smiled good-naturedly. "I've spoken to all of the branches and council. They deem you worthy through your achievements. After saving everyone in the war and defeating Madara, you're now in the runnings to be Hokage. Congratulations." Naruto looked to Konan, who was smiling wholeheartedly towards him, and he looked back to Tsunade, who was keeping up the status quo. Naruto ran to her and gave her a bone-crushing hug. Her surprise was short-lived before she returned the hug by wrapping her arms around him. She knew just how much it meant to him. After Naruto was working so hard. All of the times that he proclaimed that he was going to be Hokage. That wish was finally coming true. Remembering that he used to be a little squirt that would piss her off, she smiled as she let go of him and looked at him now. He held a strong stature, and the confident look on his face was all that she needed to see. She knew that this would be the right decision. "Thanks, Granny," Naruto said to her as his eyes teared up. "I promise that I won't let you down." "I know you won't. I've put all of my bets on you and you've won every time. Out of everyone, I believe that you of all people are worthy of the title. I'm getting on up in my years and we could use some new faces." Naruto looked behind him and saw Konan, who did a full toothy smile. "Congratulations, Naruto." Naruto started to cry as he took in everything that was happening before him. He never knew that his life would turn out this way. He was just some kid with a dream, who never gave up. He worked hard and persevered through all of his hardships, and now everything was finally paying off. He laughed wholeheartedly at himself and the outcome of everything that has happened so far. Konan looked onto the boy in a contented sigh. She looked back outwards towards the greenery and watched as a bird flew past their window. Her thoughts ran to her old sensei and her companions, Jiraiya sensei, Nagato, Yahiko. Yes, even you, mother and father. I finally helped end everything that hurt us. We finally brought the man, who started all of this, down. I hope you're proud of us." Her eyes ran up to the ceiling again as she smiled softly. "You were right. All of you were right. I should have followed my heart more. I don't think Naruto will do me wrong. He has given me a new reason to live.
I want to watch this new world and story with him.
I want to be there for him when he feels like he can't go on. I want to continue to support him, even if he doesn't need it. He deserves everything and more. He's changed me and lifted me up when I was at my worst. You were right. You were right that I shouldn't have been afraid. Thank you. It's finally over. Thank you." Chapter 30, Epilogue. Then, the boy went on to be the leader of his village and made everyone happy. And so, they all lived happily ever after. The end. A round of applause and shouts flooded the surroundings. Everyone in the room was excited that the story found such a happy ending. The teacher looked to all of the students and smiled. It wasn't every day that the class would raise so much ruckus for a story. Her eyes landed on a kid with shaggy brown hair who raised his hand, to which the woman nodded to him. "Yes, Asahi? So, did they get married?" All of the other students in the class echoed his response as they agreed on the topic. Surprisingly enough, these students were very curious about the story. Normally, when she would tell stories, the kids usually got bored or decided that they wanted to play something else. It would always make her sigh wearily when they did that, but she knew that growing kids obviously wanted to explore more than sit in a chair. "Yes, they did get married," the woman smiled to them softly. "They were married for many years and are still married today." Many oohs were made as they looked on in curiosity. A girl raised her hand expectantly. "Mrs. Uzumaki, I have a question." "Yes? Go ahead," the woman said as she closed the book, revealing a woman who didn't look a day over 30 years old. Her eyes, a deepened orange hue that showed warmth. Her blue hair, long and silky, ran to the middle of her back. Her blue eyeshadow was still ever present, but the smile that she had never left her face. "Is this story really true?" the girl asked, surprising Konan. "Of course, it's true," Konan said with a small smile. "I've witnessed it with my own eyes." "You were there?" another boy asked. "Yes, I was there," Konan said confidently. "If I wasn't there, then none of it would have happened." A knocking rapped against the classroom door, breaking everyone from their concentration. The kids didn't know what was happening, but the teacher smiled in expectance. I wonder who that could be." She walked over to the door and opened it wide. revealing a taller man with white robes walking into the classroom. His stature held confidence and his smile crept from underneath his large hat. Lord Hokage. All of the kids shouted as he walked into the room. Konan closed the door behind her as she walked beside him. All of the kids held themselves seriously, but excitedly from the village leader that showed up in front of their eyes. "Hey, kids," the man said as he lifted his head, revealing bright blue eyes and blonde hair that was cut short enough to keep out of his eyes. "As you all may have guessed, I'm the 6th Hokage, Naruto Uzumaki." Everyone awed at the man in front of them. It wasn't often that they get to see the leader of the village come into their classroom. Konan walked beside him and smiled as she looked into his direction. "Lord Hokage, for what do we owe this pleasant visit?" She already knew, but she had to keep up the act for the kids in front of her. The kids were around 8 years old, so they weren't babies, but they also weren't teenagers either. Lucky enough for them, they were on a small break that day and it allowed them to finish the story that they were reading for the past few days. Naruto smirked as he looked to all of the children. "I wanted to see all of the kids. I'd like to tell them a few things." He lifted one finger. "Firstly, I wanted to tell everyone here that I'm proud of each and every single one of you. Your dedication to your classes is what will propel you forward in life and help you achieve greater things." Naruto's smile widened as he looked at them all. A boy with blonde hair who was a little further back in the class watched him studiously before the Hokage looked up to him and smiled. The boy turned his eyesight away, pretending he had better things to do. Naruto continued with his next finger raised. "Secondly, I'd like to mention that this class has received the best grades of the entire school and I wanted to congratulate you all for working hard. It's amazing that there are so many intelligent children in this class." "Lord Hokage, is Mrs. Uzumaki your wife?" a girl asked the Hokage curiously. Naruto and Konan looked at each other before he smiled back at the little girl. "Why, yes, she is," he stated proudly while wrapping his arm around her waist. "She is the best person that I've ever met." "So, does that mean that the story she was telling us about was about you?" Naruto looked at Konan, who only smiled at him with closed eyes. Naruto began to scratch his cheek in slight embarrassment. "Yes, that story is about us. I didn't think that you guys would be interested in our story." Naruto leaned over to Konan while covering his mouth. "Hey, I thought that you weren't going to read that story anymore?" Konan giggled lightly as she spoke. "Well, I couldn't help it. Especially after we had nothing better to do since all of these kids are so smart. They finished everything relatively quickly, so I had to find something else for us to work on." Naruto groaned, but went with the story nonetheless. He was always slightly embarrassed at the story about them. It didn't help that sometimes, the story got very personal to him. He learned over the years to let it go, but it still held some strange feelings. It got him thinking about everything that occurred over the past and everything that has happened since the Fourth Shinobi War happened. A small smile crept up on his lips before he shook his head and continued. "Anyway, I wanted to go on and mention that since this class has been so productive, that you are all given free passes to the brand new Leaf World amusement park that will open next week during National Peace Day." All of the class cheered as he grinned brightly at them. "Not only that, but all of your attractions and rides will be free and you can even bring your family along." All of the kids jumped up in excitement and ran to hug the Hokage, who suddenly felt bombarded by a bunch of hands that grappled him. He maintained his balance before chuckling to them all. Konan laughed as she watched all of the children hold on to him and thank him repeatedly. Konan, a little help here?" Naruto said nervously. He was surprised at the sudden amount, but he couldn't help but think it was a bit too much. He looked up and noticed the blonde-haired boy still sitting in his same place. He never moved. His smile faltered before he chuckled nervously and looked back down at the children below him. "Okay, children. That's enough for the Hokage," she said as she helped detach the children who surrounded him. Their audible groans were heard, but they all complied to her demands. A bell rang loudly and surprised everyone before they laughed and rushed towards their seats to grab their things. "Remember on Monday that we will go outside for another demonstration. I expect that you'll all study over the weekend," Konan told the class as they started to leave. "Yes, Mrs. Uzumaki." The class collectively shouted as they all started leaving the door. The class emptied and the only people left in the room was one student and the Hokage with the teacher. Konan started to grab some of her things from the desk before Naruto softly reached for her shoulder. She turned and saw the soft smile that he gave to her. She smiled as well as they both closed into each other and shared a semi-deep kiss with each other. Once they broke away, Konan was the first to speak. "I'm surprised you made it today." "Well, I couldn't let this opportunity pass me," Naruto said as he grinned at her. "I have a clone working on my duties." Konan bumped her fist against his chest. You didn't have to do that. You know that I want you to focus on your work. You're the Hokage after all. I know, Konan, Naruto said nervously. I've been busy all week and I couldn't miss you guys again. I will see my family whether they want me to or not. I can't be at work all of the time. Konan sighed as she walked up to him and embraced him. It had been a few days since she's been able to hold him like this. She could hear his heartbeat thump against his chest and she suddenly sighed in content. Life as a cage was hard work, but it was amazing how Naruto made things work sometimes. His shadow clone technique was quite useful after all. He wrapped his arms around her and started to rub her back. He knew that it had been a while, so he wanted to come hell or high water. He was determined to make his life easier sometimes. Otherwise, the work would drive him insane. Feeling her against him again made him sigh happily. He missed this. Come on, Dad. I want to go home now. A boy with blonde hair and blue eyes walked up to them with his book bag and pouted. His 2 whisker marks on each side of his face became more pronounced as he puffed his cheeks out. Oh, Naruto said as he and Konan released their embrace. Sorry, Haruto. You're right. Time is wastin'. Your sister should be home by the time we get home. The walk through Konoha was rather peaceful. The villagers and all of the others all smiled at the Hokage as he walked through the village with his family. The looks of awe weren't lost to him, but he had to maintain some of his composure for his family and for his reputation for being the Hokage. That's an interesting look that you have on your face, Naruto, Konan said in a knowing way. Naruto was surprised at his wife's sudden statement. Well, I've gotten a few reprimands recently by the village council and more specifically, Shikamaru. They want me to look more respectable and wanted me to look stronger, but it's hard. Konan was surprised, but she closed her eyes as she spoke. Naruto, I don't mind if you relax. You're in your home village and everyone here respects you already. Don't worry about trying to keep appearances. Naruto thought quietly before he sighed. His wife was right after all. Yeah, I guess you're right. He relaxed some as he continued to walk through the village. His home wasn't that far from the Hokage Tower, but it did give him enough time to relax with the walk to his home. After rounding a corner, they came up to a house that had various flowers that seemed to take over the front yard. He smiled as he looked at them. It wasn't often when he came home with daylight still peeking from the horizon, but he was happy that he did today. There were many different variations of flowers and they lined the fence with vibrant colors. They all walked up to the front door and opened it. There were stifled giggles that came from the living room and Naruto was curious before he shouted, "Hey, Hanan, I'm home." A loud thud was heard before a girl without shoes on came around the corner. She had blue hair that was similar to her mother's hair and tied in an orange ponytail, but had bright blue eyes. 2 whisker marks adorned her cheeks just like her brother. The 12-year-old's eyes lit up as she ran towards the front door and gave him a bone-crushing hug. He smiled brightly as Hanan shouted with joy. He was happy to see her too. Daddy! You're finally home. I've missed you, Hanan shouted to her dad. She hasn't seen him for a few days, so being able to see him in the flesh was exciting. She couldn't believe that he was actually there. Wait a minute. It is you, right? Of course it's really me. I wouldn't send a clone out here today. I wanted to spend time with my family. I can't do that if it isn't me, right? Hanan smiled sweetly before she buried her face into his coat. No, I guess not. Shortly thereafter, several small pitter-patters echoed down the hall as 8 creatures showed up with excitement. Oh, hey guys. Did you miss me too? Naruto asked the small creatures. They all smiled as they launched towards him with speed and knocking him down. Konan sighed as she walked around the mess that Naruto became on the floor. She wanted to start dinner, since today was a big celebration. He was home and she wanted to make sure that his day off was a good one. All of the Baijuu stared at him expectantly and made noises in excitement. He always thought that they were cute and they made him laugh as they all tried to lay on him. He smiled genuinely as he looked down to all of them. He thought back on the times when he realized that most of the Baijuu were gone because Konan used her jutsu to move them to another dimension. He was always sad about that, but he couldn't help but try to think of another way to fix this issue. He couldn't just leave them on the other side of the dimension. He had to figure something out to bring them back. Therefore, he used his creation jutsu and with chakra remnants of all of the Baijuu that had given him power, created new Baijuu to replace the older ones. His smile faltered once he remembered that the originals are still stuck somewhere, but he hoped that these new iterations of the Baijuu would still be connected to the other ones. Of course, he already knew that B still had his Baijuu, But Gyuki didn't seem to mind his new miniature clone. Kurama didn't seem to mind that he also had a new clone. He thought of it as something like a son of sorts. That reminds me. Naruto stood up after a moment and walked over to Rinnegan. I've heard that you released your Baijuu chakra against someone the other day. That wasn't a nice thing to do. Rinnegan was starting to sweat, but Daddy, they were talking badly about you. I couldn't let them say all of those things. I know you're not what they say. Naruto sighed as he ran a hand through his hair. He knew that this was going to be a sensitive topic, but he had to get through it. I know Rinnegan. The thing is, not everyone is going to like me. Regardless of everything that I've done, there will still be people who are against me. That's just life. His eyes glanced down lovingly at his daughter. You'll just have to learn to tune the naysayers out and remember the truth. If you know the truth, then you also know that what they say is wrong. That means, as much as they lie or spew nonsense, they will never be right. Rinnegan was taken aback by her father's smooth words. He always did seem to know a lot of things. Okay, Daddy. Have you had any troubles with your seal? Naruto asked curiously. Naruto knew that his sealing skills were really bad, but he tried his best to make something that was good enough to contain a Baijuu. After practicing for a few years, he was able to achieve this level of precision, but he still had a long way to go before he could even consider himself anything but an amateur. Chakra leaked more easily from his seals and Rinnegan always had a few problems trying to keep the seal at bay. No, I haven't had any problems with it. I think it's been fine. I've gotten better at containing it, Rinnegan said as she rubbed her belly. Naruto thought before he went into his head momentarily, hey, Kurama? Do you think that she will be fine? Is your clone being a disturbance? My clone seems to be okay. He wanted to be with her anyway. I think his trust of her comes from our trust with you, so we aren't trying to cause anything to happen to her, Kurama said thoughtfully. Okay, Kurama. Thanks a lot for your input. I'll still keep a watch on the seal. I need to make sure that he doesn't accidentally get released because of my ineptitude. It looks like I came in at a weird time, a female voice spoke up as he looked behind himself and saw the previous Hokage entering his home. Oh, hey Granny, Naruto said as she closed the door behind her, I'm happy to see you. I'm happy to see you too. It's been a while, she said while grinning. Her hands held onto two bags. One seemed to be loaded with bottles of varying sizes and the other bag held some kind of cooked food. You brought food? Naruto asked curiously. He didn't expect her to bring something like that over to his house. Yes, I heard from your clone that you were going home today, so I came to bring food and celebrate your rest of the day off. Naruto looked towards the other bag that was filled with booze before he pursed his lips. It looks like you're the one that's going to be partying. Nonsense, Tsunade shouted as she put the bags on the table. This alcohol is for you and Konan as well. Naruto got nervous as he thought back on the last time that she did that. All he remembered was waking up naked with no blanket on and Konan, who seemingly escaped from his drunken stupor, was in the living room sleeping with a half-drawn blanket on her. He could only imagine his annoying tendencies when he gets drunk, so he wanted to opt out of this new drunken escapade. I'm going to have a limit tonight, Granny. I have work in the morning. Bah! What a hard ass, Tsunade grunted as she started pulling everything out of her bags. You used to be much more fun. I'm not a little kid anymore, Granny, Naruto said, embarrassed at her attack on his character. I have things that I have to do. I can't drink like that anymore. Well, you're right about that, Tsunade said while looking towards Konan. That reminds me. I'm still amazed at how young Konan looks. For a 47-year-old woman, she doesn't look a day over 30. I'm envious. You don't look any different either, Naruto said with obvious annoyance. You've always looked the same since I first met you. You may be right, but you have to understand that I'm using a jutsu to maintain this young appearance. Konan doesn't even have to do anything and she still looks the same. That strange power that she received from the Sage of Six Paths on her forehead really does slow her age, doesn't it? I guess so, Naruto said while bringing his hand up to his chin, but even if she looked older or is the way that she is now, I wouldn't mind either way. Tsunade laughed as she wrapped her arm around his neck and pulled him to her. That's true love if I've ever heard it. Lady Tsunade, please stop teasing him, Konan said as she walked towards them. Although, that was really sweet, Naruto. She kissed him on the cheek as she walked back towards the kitchen with a small smile on her face. She turned quickly and spoke. Could I trouble you for help, Lady Tsunade? Tsunade was surprised at the sudden interaction before she broke off from Naruto and walked towards the kitchen. I'll go help Konan cook. You relax and enjoy being home. It's not every day that you're home anyway. Thanks, Granny, Naruto said as he got up. He knew that it has been a while since he's been home, so he wanted to make sure that he made the most of it. Naruto was happy. He knew that things were rough in the beginning, but they've gotten easier over the years. His life has changed drastically over the years, from him being a lonely boy, to a loving father with a full family. He never knew that his life would turn out this way. His eyes looked down in sadness as he reflected on the deaths of his former comrades, Sakura and Sasuke. He sometimes wished that they were with him again. That they could enjoy this future with him. He teared up slightly as he found the picture of the three of them with their master Kakashi. It had been forever ago since they both passed away, but the memory of their original team lingered in his mind. He could only wish for a moment that things would have turned out better for the both of them. His eyes gazed upon the picture that he kept of his family in the living room. Both he and Konan had wide genuine smiles on their faces. Their kids were both smiling together with them, but being somewhat unruly. He laughed as he looked at them. Then, his eyes came across his wedding photo. Their regal appearance was truly astounding, but he looked at Konan's face and saw the image of a woman who seemed as if she was walking on air. She looked like an angel. Naruto smiled as he thought on everything. He knew that he made the right choices. He worked hard. He had to. It was his dream to become Hokage. Having Konan by his side was a decision that he never regretted for a moment. Who knew that saving her would make such a difference in his life? Daddy? Naruto, broken from his concentration, looked over to Hanan and only smiled, yes? Dinner is ready. Naruto grinned wider as he looked towards his family. He saw Tsunade and his son placing plates, bowls, and utensils onto the table. He watched as Konan placed the foods on the table and he sighed in content. He knew that it wasn't perfect, but he didn't want to change a thing. He knew that at the end of the day, that this would be his favorite moment. He walked over from his place and went to the dinner table. Tsunade roused up herself with booze and began laughing loudly. Konan laughed as she listened to Tsunade's story that she started telling. Hanan and Haruto both were intent on sitting down and Naruto decided to sit down as well. Naruto laughed as he watched his godmother laugh herself into a fit. He knew that this night was going to be a night to remember. Such were times like these. But little did he know, these happy times would not last forever. Final author's note for TLO, well, here we are. We finally made it to the end of this story. I'm surprised that I actually completed it. It took me forever. It took me a total of 2,528 days to complete this story that should have been done in only a year. We are also coming severely close to the 8-year anniversary. It's a good thing that I completed it before then. LOL. But, it's done. I hope you guys are happy with the outcome of the story. So, to answer several questions that I'm sure is on everyone's minds. Konan's age did slow because of the Kaguya power that she obtained. She slowed just enough to grow old together with Naruto. That way, they look the same age. The Baijuu are stuck in the other dimension because Madara was the 10 Tails form when he got left there. Naruto therefore created new Baijuu with the two symbols on his hands that are identical to their original counterparts, but they are back to their younger selves and have a mind of their own. Hanan is a new Jinchuriki because Kurama's miniature wanted to be with the girl at first sight. Much more different than the way Kurama behaved over the years. Konan keeps her power and it works in a certain way. When I continue the last one with a sequel, you will see more in depth on how it works. I already have it planned out. Naruto still has all of the pieces of the Baijuu inside of him. He just made new Baijuu with those pieces. They will also grow with time. Naruto is home way more often than he is in canon for the Boruto series. I can't stand how they did my boy Naruto like that and made him a super square. What kind of lame-ass dad never comes home? Yes, there is a sequel in the works, but don't expect it until later. I have to finish blank page first. It's amazing that I've even thought of the sequel, but that's only because the fight between Naruto and Sasuke with Jigen fueled the flame for the sequel possibility. Not only that, but the time travel arc for Boruto and Sasuke as well got me speculating everything. Ideas have already come to my head and you guys would love the continuation just as much as the first part of this story. Naruto's hair turned back to blonde during the fight with Madara. The reasoning is quite simple for this story. After he gained all of his powers, they pretty much evened everything out. Now his hair is back to his blonde hair and you don't have to worry about it being orange or red. I was never planning on keeping his hair those colors. I didn't like it either, but it was important that the hair be orange mainly for symbolism in earlier chapters of the story. Yes, The reason why Konan was saved from the genjutsu that was cast upon her at the beginning of the story with her fight between her and Tobi and Ame was because Naruto went back in time and repaired her mind. His omnipresence helped heal her while he was in the past for a short amount of time. Yes, this was always part of the story. It was my plan to have him go back in time like that. Hanan translated means flower child. I thought it was appropriate given Konan's fondness for flowers. Haruto means sun or sunlight in relation to his hair. Yes, they both have ha at the beginning of their names for consistency and also for what they mean. The infinite Tsukiyomi tree was cut down after they got rid of Madara. Alright guys, that's it for this video. If you enjoyed it, please feel free to leave a like and subscribe. Once again, huge thanks to all of my Patreons. I should be posting a couple more stories for you guys over there either today or tomorrow, so keep an eye out for that. Anyways, until next time, peace.